Jasmine Paolini taking down Naomi Osaka. Details around 6:30.
The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m. The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
Today is Tuesday, the 25th of March, 2025. Hey, good morning and welcome to it, the Tuesday edition of The Morning Brief here on SAFM. I'm Thulasizwe Simelane and I'm here to deliver your morning brief. Come, let us spend the next 3 hours together, informing and engaging each other and sharpening each other's perspectives on the key issues of the day. Here's what's coming up on this Tuesday morning on the show over the next 3 hours. Well, both the posts of U.S. Ambassador to South Africa and South Africa's Ambassador to the United States are currently vacant following the unceremonious end to Ibrahim Rasool's tenure as South Africa's ambassador in Washington. This comes at a time when relations between the two countries are arguably at an all-time low. Rasool landed back in the country over the past weekend. You will have seen the visuals coming through from Cape Town when he was being received there. This was after he was expelled by the Trump administration, who labeled him a race-baiting politician who hates America. And that's a quote from Marco Rubio. So addressing supporters when he landed back in Cape Town, you got a glimpse from Ambassador Rasool that there are certain nuances as to who should be, or perhaps the characteristics of the next person that should be appointed in Washington at this particular point of trying to restart the relationship between South Africa and the United States. So at the top of 7, we'll get you some analysis as to what considerations perhaps are at play in deciding who should be the next ambassador to Washington. It's one thing to mouth off names and suggest and say, pick this person, pick that person. But what exactly are you solving for? Who will be able to be given a hearing that Ambassador Rasool clearly could not get? Because he did say that he tried the usual diplomatic route, but it wasn't getting him anywhere. And he then says he then resorted to what he calls the diplomacy of Ubuntu. So I want you to weigh in as well. Not just the names. I've heard the names. It's quite an easy topic to say, let's pick out names. But what exactly are you looking for? Ambassador Rasool, for example, and we will unpack this in the analysis. Ambassador Rasool making the suggestion that South Africa should not appoint a white South African to be ambassador just for the sake of convenience, that you have an administration that is that way inclined in Washington, and therefore there should be more to it, that you don't compromise our values. This person should be able to stand firm, but at the same time not offending those in the United States, and ensuring that you are able to have strategic access and the likes. That's the kind of conversation that I'm hoping we will be able to have. So I do want you to weigh in on that. What qualities are you looking for the next ambassador? Of course, ultimately the call will be that of President Cyril Ramaphosa. Give me a call, weigh in on that conversation. The number to dial 086 000 2032. Your WhatsApp voice notes, I'll take those on 061 410 4107. Of course, we were told that there are already 3 names that were being considered, but I want to hear from you. What kind of person, what characteristics, what qualities are we looking for in our next ambassador to Washington that will enable them to get further along the line than Ambassador Rasool was able to in his mission? The other story that we want to bring under the spotlight this morning: pressure is mounting for President Cyril Ramaphosa to appoint a permanent Deputy Chief Justice. Get this, the post has been vacant since the current Chief Justice, Mandisa Maya, vacated it in September last year to ascend to the judiciary's top post. Complicating matters further for President Cyril Ramaphosa, basically suggesting that he doesn't have the luxury of time, is the fact that the current acting Deputy Chief Justice, Mbuyiseni Madlanga's term of office is due to end in the next few months, really, in July this year. So judicial advocacy groups such as Judges Matter are piling on the pressure for a substantive appointment, and we'll be having that conversation in the first half hour of the second hour. The role of Deputy Chief Justice quite critical in supporting what the Chief Justice does. And you and I know about the backlogs in the courts and the amount of work that needs to go into ensuring that ordinary South Africans have access to justice. And therefore, that role can't be left unfilled for too long. And then coming back to this hour, just from about 20 to 7 onwards, we'll be focusing a bit on this incident that happened at the Merimi informal settlement. 6 people have now been arrested in connection with the murder of 5 people over the weekend. The 5 community patrollers who were killed at the informal settlement known as Merimi in Soshanguve in Pretoria. So we'll have 2 conversations, 2 takes on that. The first one will get the perspective of those people involved in community policing fora. So we'll be speaking to TJ Masilela, who is the president of the Gauteng Community Policing Forum, as well as Dr. Bandile Masugu, who is the chairperson of the Community Safety Portfolio Committee in the Gauteng legislature. So that is coming up within the next, at about 22 to 7 onwards. So that's the focus that we'll have on that conversation. Of course, we have all of your regulars locked and loaded for you once again this morning. Kulufelo Tefo with your news updates at the top and at the bottom of every hour. Rob Byrne with your traffic updates every 15 minutes or so. Zaikan is watching your sport throughout the morning. Dauleng Lechela has your economics, business and market news covered. Sipho Mantula with your Africa update just before 8 a.m. And all of your calls, put them through on 086 000 2032. I'll take your WhatsApp voice notes on 061 410 4107. On social media, we are at SAFM on X. We are SAFM Radio on Facebook and Instagram. And we are live on our YouTube channel, SAFM Radio. This is SAFM. We are leading the conversations that move us. The first hour of the Tuesday edition of the Morning Brief starts now.
The Daily News Diary on SAFM.
Kulufelo, good morning.
Good morning, Thulasizwe.
How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Very good. How are we looking on the diary?
Well, today I must say that it's all things the working class. So we first start in Parliament, which will today start public hearings into the budget. This after Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana announced 23 billion rand in additional funding to cover the 5.5% public servant salary increase in the next 3 years. The workers are expecting the increase to take effect next Tuesday. We will see about that. While on that, Tulas, NUMSA has raised a concern over the looming increase in VAT. The union made their comments at their 3-day bargaining conference, which started in Sandton, Johannesburg yesterday. We are obviously curious about the outcomes from that conference. Moving forward, President Cyril Ramaphosa will this morning address the Democratic Nursing Organization of South Africa's 9th Congress in Birchwood in the eastern Johannesburg. The Congress will deal with issues related to implementation of the NHI and conditions under which nurses will work. I mean, given our current state of public hospitals, one wonders how this will turn out, but we are looking closely into that story. And lastly, as we've heard in our news, former President Kgalema Motlanthe has been appointed to a panel of facilitators of peace talks in the conflict in the eastern DRC. This as leaders of the SADC and the EAC seek to resolve the conflict, which left 14 of our soldiers killed. And lots more coming in today on SAFM Tulas.
All right. Thank you for that, Kulufelo. We'll hear more from you. Interesting, that story about former President Kgalema Motlanthe being appointed to that panel that will lead the negotiations and try and facilitate a dialogue in the Congo situation. You'll hear more updates from Kulufelo Tefo every half hour here on The Morning Brief.
Thulasizwe Simelane on The Morning Brief. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
All right, let's give you a sense of how your weather is looking this morning. We have 2 impact-based warnings. The first one is a yellow level 2 warning. It's for severe thunderstorms leading to localized flooding of susceptible areas as well as localized damage to infrastructure, settlements, property, vehicles, livelihood and livestock. And those conditions are expected over the southern parts of KwaZulu-Natal, southern parts of the Free State, as well as the eastern half of the Eastern Cape. Another yellow level 2 warning is for damaging winds, leading to difficulty in navigation at sea. And that condition is expected between Table Bay and Still Bay. The rest of your weather looks like this. Pretoria will be partly cloudy with isolated showers and thunder showers with a minimum of 18 and a maximum of 28. Johannesburg, partly cloudy with isolated showers and thunder showers, 17 to 27. Mbombela will see morning fog, otherwise partly cloudy with isolated showers and thunder showers, 17 to 29. Polokwane, partly cloudy, 16 to 27. Mahikeng will be partly cloudy with isolated afternoon showers and thunder showers, 19 to 30. Bloemfontein will be partly cloudy with isolated showers and thunder showers, 19 to 31. Kimberley will be partly cloudy with isolated showers and thunder showers, 21 to 31. Uppington, partly cloudy with isolated showers and thunder showers, 21 to 30. Cape Town will be cloudy and windy with light rain, 18 to 21. George, partly cloudy, 16 to 24. Gqeberha, partly cloudy with isolated showers and thunder showers, 18 to 24. East London will be partly cloudy with scattered showers and thunder showers, 20 to 25. Durban will be partly cloudy with scattered showers and thunder showers, 23 to 30. Richards Bay, partly cloudy, 23 to 34. And finally, Pietermaritzburg will have morning fog patches, otherwise partly cloudy with scattered showers and thunder showers, 17 to 33.
This Human Rights Month, SAFM is deepening a culture of social justice and human rights. It's a time to reflect, engage, and take action for a more just society. From thought-provoking discussions to powerful stories, SAFM is leading the conversations that move us. Because your voice matters, your rights matter, and together we shape a better future. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
Durban is excited to welcome visitors this Easter season. Join the family-friendly fun with unforgettable day tours along the Golden Mile, indoor and outdoor adventures, and delicious culinary delights. Don't miss the grand opening of Western Square on 27 March. Durban's newest lifestyle destination in Shongweni. This multi-million rand project is set to transform the city's western corridor. As Africa's event capital, Durban will host major events this season, including the joyous celebration Easter Megafest and the Pre-Easter Gospel Festival. Discover the excitement in Africa's playground. For more details and Easter packages, visit durban.travel and the hashtag Durban Easter 2025, hashtag Discover Durban, hashtag Visit Durban.
Worldview Update, bringing you closer to international or global news.
21 minutes after 6, let's focus on this story now. The former FIFA president, Sepp Blatter, and former UEFA president, Michel Platini, are back in court in Switzerland to hear whether the country's criminal court's extraordinary appeals chamber will uphold or reject an appeal by prosecutors against their 2022 acquittals. In 2022, they were cleared of fraud charges related to a 2 million Swiss franc payment that FIFA made to Platini in 2011. Swiss federal prosecutors have appealed that decision, leading to this new trial. Let's speak now to football journalist Benjamin Leshoro. Thank you for joining us, and good morning to you, Benji. It's been a while. So this is not the wide-ranging investigation and takedown and prosecution that we once believed it would be. We've seen prosecutions here and there, but it's nonetheless significant. These are two of the formerly most powerful men, arguably, in world football.
Good morning, Tulas. It has been a while, my brother. Good morning to your listeners as well. Well, this is, arguably the two that prosecutors always wanted, right? These are two big fish, if I can put it like that.
Yeah.
And you'll remember this is the fraud allegations against Sepp Blatter and Michel Platini were part of a wide-ranging, bigger-scale corruption scheme that was uncovered by the FBI back in 2015. That's what, 10 years ago now. It sounds almost unbelievable. But yeah, it at the center of it all is, as you mentioned, that 2 million Swiss francs, or just over 40 million rand, that was, according to the two gentlemen, a gentleman's agreement that was paid to Michel Platini from the FIFA coffers in 2011. That is what the investigation is about, and that is what the prosecutors are simply not buying, because remember, there was an acquittal in 2022 of these two gentlemen, but the prosecutors filed an appeal precisely because they don't buy that it was just a backdated pay for Platini's work done between 1998 and 2002, which was essentially in Sepp Blatter's first term as not term, but during his first years as FIFA president, right? The issue here is the timing. The suspicion here is the timing of that payment, because it was round about the time when Sepp Blatter was running for FIFA presidency for his fourth term, and Michel Platini, who was believed to be the preordained successor of Sepp Blatter, was supposed to be running, was thought to be lining up a campaign himself, but all of a sudden he didn't. And this was revealed in 2015. He didn't.
I see what you're saying.
Yes, and then this was in 2011. It coincided with the payment.
So go over that. Sorry, Benji, go over that once again. It's quite a critical point that you're making. So you are saying part of what drove the suspicion of prosecutors is the fact that it was widely expected that Platini was going to challenge Blatter for the FIFA presidency. But after this quote-unquote gentleman's agreement, he suddenly, inexplicably, did not run.
Yes, and this was the one position that Michel Platini was believed to believe himself that it was sort of his birthright. And when he suddenly did not run, in fact, nothing was thought of it at the time that he did not run in 2011. Perhaps a lot of people just felt he believed in Sepp Blatter and has more still to give. But in 2015, when the bigger scandal was uncovered, it was also uncovered that the payment, the 2 million Swiss francs, coincided with him pulling out of the race to run as FIFA president.
I wasn't aware of that little detail, and that suddenly it makes a lot more sense why prosecutors would see it as fraudulent and corrupt, whereas these two gentlemen are calling it a quote-unquote gentleman's agreement. But it's never that straightforward or black and white, is it, Benji? As usual, there are cries of political undertones in this case, and when we say political, we include the politics of football. Bring into all of this the fall from grace of Sepp Blatter and the rise of Gianni Infantino.
Of course, and Michel Platini has always maintained that it was part of a witch hunt against him because he was planning to run for FIFA presidency when Sepp Blatter eventually feels like, okay, I've done whatever I can do. I'm okay now, and he goes into the sunset. And he believed that he is going to eventually take over as FIFA, but it was instead Gianni Infantino. And what he believes is that there are forces inside UEFA, inside FIFA. Remember, Michel Platini was the president of UEFA, which is arguably the most powerful confederation of football in the world. The rest, like CAF, CONMEBOL, CONCACAF, they come after UEFA in terms of the power they wield inside FIFA. So he believes it was part of a witch hunt against him, because it ended essentially his hopes of ever ascending to the top of world football. And that is the issue here.
Yeah.
Because even if there has been a hearing now, there's going to be a lot that has to be done to convince that even if the acquittal is upheld,
Sure.
that they simply did not. Perhaps some might say there just wasn't enough evidence to convict them, because prosecutors, and the problem that the prosecutors have, Thulas, is that there has been a verdict already. So to overturn a verdict that's already been given, there has to be compelling evidence.
It's a bit of a mountain to climb. Yeah.
Yes, I'd be interested if it is overturned. I'd be interested to find out if there was any new evidence that was submitted to the court 3 weeks ago.
We'll find out, of course, a bit later on in the day today. But Benji, finally, someone listening might be wondering, there was a time when, and I started this conversation by alluding to that time when the FBI was going gung-ho and just announcing widespread investigation across multiple jurisdictions, including here in South Africa as well. There were, I can't remember the numbers, I think suspect 15 and 16, etc., whatever the number was. And then suddenly died down after, Chuck Blazer and the likes were taken down, and of course this trial of Blatter and Platini.
Michel Platini.
Yeah. So what happened to the rest of that investigation? Does it fuel the sense that it was always about those you called the big fish, these two?
Definitely, it seems like it's always been about Michel Platini and Sepp Blatter, because you recall that there's other people that were involved. Chuck Blazer from the U.S., as you mentioned. There was another gentleman from the Caribbean, whose name escapes me now. But there's always been other names that were mentioned. But it all culminated in them and their connection to these particular two gentlemen, and how there was a whole web of corruption that involves them, but indirectly implicating Sepp Blatter and Michel Platini. And that is why, Thulas, that should these two gentlemen, because even if you do get convictions for everyone else, prosecutors will always feel that should they fail to convict these two, because remember, they're not pushing for prison time or any jail time for these two. They're pushing for 20 months suspended sentence, something like that. But the only thing they want is a conviction, because they'll always feel that it was all for nothing if they do not get a conviction for these particular two gentlemen.
Let's leave it there for this morning. Thank you for your time. That's Benjamin Leshoro, a football journalist there, giving us the intrigue and the drama of the politics and the intrigue in the courtrooms within the world of football. That decision coming up a bit later into Sepp Blatter and the former UEFA president, Michel Platini. Let's check in now with Khulufelo Defo with the latest news headlines.
Thanks to us. In the headlines this hour, Parliament will today start public hearings into their budget. This as public sector workers are demanding a speedy resolution to the current budget standoff, saying many government departments are already in crisis. NUMSA says the looming increase in value-added tax is a serious concern for workers. This as the union has convened a 3-day bargaining conference which started in Gauteng, Johannesburg yesterday. And former President Kgalema Motlanthe has been appointed to a panel of facilitators of peace talks in the Eastern DRC. This as leaders of the Southern African Development Community and East African Community seek to resolve the conflict. Details at 7.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic. Thulasizwe Simelane on SAFM.
How disruptive did you find yesterday's blockage of roads by striking EMPD officers using official vehicles to stage that protest?
It's lawlessness that we must not tolerate. And I've sent a very strong message to all law enforcement agencies, the SAPS, including the Ekurhuleni leadership. This must not be tolerated. We can't be in a position to run government if you have this kind of lawlessness, where law enforcement agencies can behave the way they're behaving. You can't just close a highway, especially going to airport. It disrupts just everyone, even if it does not go into the airport. But we don't have to tolerate this kind of lawlessness. If we can't stop this kind of law enforcement of lawlessness, which one are we going to stop? Do we deserve to be called to law enforcement agencies or police if people can do as they wish in our own country, in our own province?
That's Premier Panyaza Lesufi, the Premier of Gauteng.
This is Thulasizwe Simelane on The Morning Brief. Missed it? Find the podcast at safm.co.za. SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
A lot going on this Tuesday. The Mike 1 North closed at the Smith Street off-ramp. The ramp is closed, and that's causing a little bit of congestion. We think it's probably due to flooding. The Mike 1 from Ormonde, the M2 from Joe Slovo, heavily backed up into Crown and up towards the Smith Street off-ramp where that closure is, and that traffic likely to worsen over the next bit as well. The M3 pretty heavy today from Germiston all the way through to Galulis. No gaps in that traffic at this stage. R21, just a reminder to give yourself extra time to get through the Tembisa area on your way towards the airport. Looks okay at this stage, but it is, of course, a construction zone. On your way to Pietermaritzburg, having left Durban, a crash at Ashburton, causing a backlog through towards the Linfield Park area. Cape Town, everything on a bit of a go slow. There is some rain across the region this morning, and just having a look at our sort of real-time maps that we deal with, we can just see it is noticeably busier. M3 is already quite a heavy queue back beyond Constantia. The N1 from Brackenfell right through to Coburg, it changed a lot heavier than normal on that run through. East London side, now the taxi strike and shutdown event is underway. We're seeing multiple gatherings of taxis across the East London region. That will lead to blockages for the motoring public and a no-go, or a no-show at least, in terms of taxi commuters, near taxi coming along. So a difficult day around the East London region. And just outside, between Cathcart and Stutterheim on the N6, a truck crash about halfway through, causing some delays along that route. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Zai, good morning. So this rule and insistence by FIFA that games be played at suitable stadia, even if it means that countries play outside of their home ground, is proving to be a bit difficult for coaches to deal with. Our own Hugo Broos battling with it, yeah?
I know, he's fuming at the moment. I don't know if we're going to need VAR to check what exactly his mood is like, maybe to review his mood when we actually win. But yeah, he's so angry at the moment, is Coach Hugo Broos. And why? There's drama. Bafana denied a chance to train at the match venue in Abidjan. Coach Broos calling it dishonest and unfair, especially since FIFA rules allow a 1-hour session on the pitch the day before the game. The stadium was unavailable due to another match, but Bruce suspects Benin may have already trained there.
Benin is a good team. They played only a draw Friday, so they are 2 points behind us. But qualification for World Cup of AFCON in Africa are very, very difficult. You never can tell before a game you will win it. You have to fight for every meter, every ball, every point you need. So today it will not be different. We will play against a good team. We know that.
In the meantime, Thomas Partey and Mohamed Kudus strengthened Ghana's bid for a place at the 2026 FIFA World Cup, while Ivory Coast won to return to the top of their qualifying group. Elsewhere, Thomas Tuchel continued his perfect start to life with the Three Lions as England secured a 3-0 win against Latvia in their second World Cup qualifier. And rugby, Thomas du Toit crediting the coaches at Bath for teaching him the art of securing tries as the Springbok prop continues to chalk up touchdowns for the Premiership front runners. The 29-year-old who joined the Somerset club in 2023 has turned into an unlikely try-scoring machine under director of rugby Johan van Graan's system. Motorsport news. Red Bull are seriously considering swapping Liam Lawson and Yuki Tsunoda for the Japanese Grand Prix. Lawson has endured a dismal start to his Red Bull career, being knocked out at the first stage of all 3 qualifying sessions, and he also exhibits a lack of race pace, highlighted by the relative success of his teammate Max Verstappen. And finally, some tennis action, and it's Arina Sabalenka ending the defending champion Daniel Collins' bid for a title repeat with a 6-4, 6-4 victory at the Miami Open, advancing to the quarterfinals. Italy's Jasmine Paolini advancing 3-6, 6-4, 6-4. It was a comeback win over Naomi Osaka. And in the men's draw, the top seed Alexander Zverev, recovering from a slow start, powering into the 4th round, 7-5, 6-4, was his win against Australia's Jordan Thompson at the Hard Rock Stadium. That's a wrap of the Morning Brief Sport. More top of the hour. I'm Zai Khan.
The Business Update on SAFM.
Let's say good morning to Ndauleng Lechela for the first update of the morning. Good morning, Ndauleng. Tell me about BYD eyeing expansion into the European market.
Morning, Tula. So China's BYD has its sights set on conquering the European market. That's as it plans to launch a new compact electric model with super fast charging capabilities. But BYD's global ambitions may be impacted by geopolitical and trade tensions between China and Western countries. Now, the company is also facing an investigation by EU authorities over alleged unfair subsidies for its European factory in Hungary. Despite these challenges, BYD is confident in its ability to compete with established European brands. Now, the company's Super E platform, battery and charging system boasts peak speeds of 1,000 kilowatts, allowing cars to travel up to 470 kilometers after a 5-minute charge. Now, these future plans come alongside the company's sales update, where it reported a record $107.2 billion in revenue last year, surpassing one of its competitors, Tesla's $97.7 billion. BYD's revenue growth of 29% outperformed expectations, driven by strong sales of its electric vehicles. Now, the company's net profit also reached a record high, up 34% from 2023. Now, BYD's strong numbers come as Tesla reported lower than expected profits for the 4th quarter of 2024. The decline marked a mixed year for Tesla, which saw its streak of annual car volume growth come to an end.
So the rise of the Asian automakers is no longer something that's speculation. You're starting to see it on the books of some of these companies, yeah?
That's right, Thulas. And not just BYD, you see it with some of its competitors as well. Those numbers are, they're really good.
Wow. I know who Goldfields are, Ndauleng.
Yeah.
I must admit, I don't know who Gold Road are. Tell me about Goldfields and Gold Road bidding over an Australian mine.
So both gold miners, Gold Road, however, not a South African mine. And we do that. Goldfields has operations or mines and assets in other countries, particularly in Australia. And Goldfields and its joint venture partner, Gold Road, are in a standoff over the ownership of a gold mine in Western Australia. The mine, known for its low-cost production and long operational lifespan, has a mineral resource of over 6 million ounces of gold. And Goldfields is looking to consolidate its ownership, offering to buy out Gold Road and valuing the company at 3.3 billion Australian dollars. Gold Road, however, countered with a proposal to buy Goldfields' 50% stake in the mine, sparking that bidding war. Now, the standoff really a big test for Goldfields CEO Mike Fraser, who has been shifting the company's growth trajectory through acquisitions, especially at a time where the company is really cash positive on the back of higher gold prices. Now, Goldfields is under pressure to add new mines and development projects to its portfolio to address aging mine problems. The Gruyere mine produces about 35,000 ounces of gold per year, with an estimated mine life of over 10 years. So Goldfields believes that consolidating ownership would eliminate inefficiencies and provide Gold Road shareholders with an attractive cash price for their investments. Now, this tit for tat, this bidding war, not really sitting well with investors with the share price, Goldfields share price down over 5% in yesterday's session. And there are concerns that the bidding process could result in Goldfields overpaying for that asset.
Off the back of that, then, Dowling, please give us a sense of how the markets are looking at this hour.
So starting off stateside, markets extending last week's gains, closing in the green overnight. The positivity really being fueled by speculation that the upcoming round of reciprocal tariffs set to take effect next week, Wednesday, might be less extensive than initially anticipated, potentially sparing key industries such as the auto market, the pharmaceutical market, and chip makers from the brunt of the tariffs. With that, the tech-heavy Nasdaq making the most gains on that front, up over 2%. The mood quite different back at home, with stocks mixed. The all-share losing about 0.6% in yesterday's session, and those losses really being fueled by a near 3% decline in the Resources 10 complex. This as gold retreats from record highs. Meanwhile, in currency markets, not much action playing out, with the rand remaining pretty unchanged at 18.23 to the greenback. And then over in Asia, trade choppy as investors await more clarity on President Trump's next trade policy moves.
That's our Dowling Lechela there with the first update of the morning. She'll be back with more insights for you. That's coming up just after 7:30 here on the Morning Brief.
The Cheetahs are very hungry for victory. However, Bafana say they are in the business of collecting 3 points. The West battles it out with the South. This is the FIFA World Cup 2026 African qualifier. Experience the delight of African football. Benin versus South Africa. On Tuesday, 25 March at 5:30 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4, S3, and at 6 p.m. on SABC radio stations. Also, available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
If you're active on social media and love SAFM, we hope you'll take a moment to like or follow our SAFM page on Facebook and Twitter. These are the best places to find all the guest information, conversations, and stories you love from your favorite presenters, along with regular updates from SABC News. And don't forget, you can send your questions to feedback@safm.co.za. SAFM, leading the conversation. Is there ever a bad time for a good conversation? SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
15 minutes to 7 on this Tuesday. Let's turn our attention to this story. 6 people, as you know, have been arrested in connection with the murder over the weekend of 5 community patrollers at the Marry Me informal settlement, and that's in Soshanguve in Pretoria. The attack occurred early on Saturday morning while the community patrollers were on duty in the area. 7 other patrollers were wounded in the incident and are currently receiving medical treatment. 2 conversations lined up for you. The first one is with TJ Masilela, who is the president of the Gauteng Community Policing Forum. Good morning to you, and thank you for your time. What does this incident tell us about the frustration, one, of communities like those in informal settlements like Marry Me in Soshanguve, about the prevalence of crime in their areas, but 2, also about the dangers involved when communities do that thing that we always talk about, to say be proactive, get involved in the fight against crime?
No, thank you very much. Good morning. I take that we all express our condolences and wishing those that are recuperating speedy recovery, irrespective of the circumstances. To be honest with you, Simelane, there is a lack of knowledge, but also I think the marketing and the promotion of the community police relations, I think we haven't done well in that space. The crime levels dictate and ignite people participation, but they have to do this in the right way so that we don't have situation like the one that happened in Alexandra 2 years ago, and what happens in Mthatha and what happens now in Soshanguve. So it simply means that we at this level, we we should do more in campaigning, but also bringing people closer to the correct process and procedures. Deployment of community patrollers, there's nothing wrong with that, but it has to be done with the police and the law enforcement knowledge and support and backup. That is what is important here, and the correct people are deployed, because we might find that people have other interests other than just fighting crime, maybe contributing in a way or the other, and then end up fighting for thefts.
So just give us that distinction then between community patrollers and people involved in community policing fora. What was the difference, and are community patrollers formalized in the way that I understand CPFs to be?
Okay, so we encourage all community members, or all members of community who wants to participate in the crime prevention or being eyes and ears, or being force multiplier. The community patrollers of the CPF comes from the SAPS Act 68 of 1995, where it dictates as to say how must this relationship work. So we come in the three phases. Firstly, we as a CPF, you then, our responsibility is to level the playing field, allowing the community police relations, and the other facet that we come is to say, right, we know you don't have enough resources in terms of human resources. We then give you force multiplier, of which you as a police, you will train, and you will retrain and deploy and redeploy and redevelop as and when you need them, and as and when it's necessary for your operations, which are every week anyway. So then once we have done that, the last facet is to say, right, now we're doing oversight on the work that we have done, so that we can together, as a partnership, we can then plan on where we have done well, where we are not doing well, and where we can improve or come with new innovations in the fight against crime, like your e-policing now recently, and so forth. So that's the difference. People are joining or are recruited simply as volunteers. They come and get verified through fingerprints, which must be done every year. And obviously there's a database that you maintain of patrollers, active patrollers, semi-active, and those. At least patrollers are expected to do 16 hours per month. Only 16 hours voluntary work per month. That is what is expected. But obviously that can differ.
Lastly then, TJ, is there a need to review how all of this works, and the equipment that community patrollers have? I've heard the debate about whether or not to arm them, and perhaps regulate how they're armed, given the levels of violence that accompany our crime situation in this country. Are we at a point where we need to make a choice? Do we pull out these people from this danger that they're exposed to, or do we arm them, given that criminals are armed?
Now, to pull them out will be a disaster, because it's not only patrolling, it's also community intelligence that you gather from these patrollers. It's from these volunteers. So it's not just only the patrol. There's a lot that is in the background. Some deterrence, some visibility plays a very important role. So I don't think it will be a good idea. That is why it's actually it's within the legal frame to have this, unless we change the Constitution of the Republic.
All right, I've got to thank you for your time this morning. That's TJ Masilela. He's the president of the Gauteng Community Policing Forum.
Call Thulasizwe now, 086 000 2032.
Let me take a quick call from Matthew in Cape Town. Good morning to you, Matthew. You want to comment about South Africa's ambassador to the United States?
Morning, Thulasizwe. Morning to the listeners. Look, I don't think Pretoria should send anyone at this moment to Thulasizwe. I think if you look at the policies of the ANC, it's mostly got socialist policies with socialist ideas. And look who's running the United States. They champion capitalism as their economic philosophy for decades. Now you have oligarchs, billionaires running the country, and they're running it like a corporation. I think the two economic philosophies and ideologies are going to clash, because South Africa is a socialist state with socialist policies. built on by the ANC. And you can see it. And I think the Americans, the way they are, they will never trust socialism.
Yeah.
Forget about it.
No, I hear what you're saying, Matthew, but you'll have a lot of parties on the left of the political scale here in South Africa who will beg to differ and say South Africa is actually not a socialist state. And in fact, the ANC itself will tell you they're not socialist. They are a broad church, quote unquote, with many philosophies, with a slight leaning to the left.
Okay, you're saying that. Can I ask you a question? Just one question. You're saying that how much money goes for social grants from the South African fiscus?
Sure, I hear that. That's social security, which is done even in countries that are not necessarily socialist in orientation.
It's a large proportion of grants. I'm not saying it's wrong. But we need to look at that.
Gotcha.
That it does have an impact. I'm not saying it's wrong.
Gotcha.
But that's what I'm asking.
Gotcha. Matthew, thank you for that. That's Matthew in Cape Town weighing in on the situation around the appointment of the ambassador to the United States. And let me take Thabo very quickly. Thabo in Germiston. Good morning. You want to talk to me about community patrollers and the incident at the Merimi informal settlement?
Absolutely. Good morning, Thulas, and good morning to your listeners. Look, Thulas, I don't want us to play a blame game here. I don't want us to play a blame game, with the police. But the gentleman, the police gentleman that came on radio a few minutes ago, painted a picture of as if everything, it's hunky-dory and all that. There's a crisis out there pertaining to crime, Thulas. There's a crisis, and the levels of frustrations, from the people of South Africa are out of the roof. And we must not even try to sugarcoat that. So he mentioned very important things, like obviously there's processes in terms of, community policing, in partnership with the police,
yes,
and all that. But the fact of the matter is that a lot of community members don't even know about these things. What have they done to extend that hand to make sure that this kind of partnerships get strengthened and all that, particularly given frustrations. What have they done?
Gotcha.
Because now he's painting this picture, but now they don't know, and out of frustration, they end up doing all these things. I don't want to say taking the law into their own hands, but they end up doing all these things, and then we've got this kind of repercussion.
I get exactly what you're saying. Thank you for that, Thabo. And I do remember that when the current commissioner was appointed, and I think I've made this point before, community policing and the connection and trust, building the trust and relationship between the police and communities. I remember very specifically that was one of his marching orders. So that information gap about what it is that community patrollers do and how they go about doing that, I agree with you fully that needs to be disseminated and publicized a bit more.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Heavy traffic through Crown Interchange this morning. A crash on the Mike 1 North at Crown, and then the Smith Street off-ramp is closed, which is causing a double whack of sort of delay. So coming through from Ormonde, very heavy, right through Crown, up through Braamfontein, the M2 backlogging from Joe Slovo. And there's some heavy pressure on Joe Slovo Drive going north through Durbanfontein. It could well be related to some flooding issues there as well in that subway section. Crash N3 north at Galuli's, big delays from Germiston. There's heavy pressure out of the airport this morning, R24 towards Barbara Road, very slow, and a crash at the junction of Atlas and North Rand Road, snarling traffic in Benoni. R21 moving towards the roadworks near the Benoni exit, starting to snarl up. Crash at Ashburton on your way to Pietermaritzburg. The road is closed, and if you're driving Cape Town, make sure you've got plenty of time to get through this morning. Everything on a go slow due to wet weather conditions. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
This is a story of Vodacom's impact.
I didn't know anything about computer. I learned a computer after I passed my matric, and Vodacom is doing an excellent job in the youth of South Africa.
This is why we do it. Over 1,800 Youth Academy students trained, with 250 placed in ICT coordinator roles at our schools of excellence. That's why we're the #1 CSI contributor for 8 years running. See more at now.vodacom.coza. Further together, Vodacom. The only talk radio morning breakfast show that makes sense. The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane.
All right, let's continue with that story, actually, over that incident that happened at the Marry Me informal settlement. I'm joined now by Dr. Bandile Masuku, who is the Gauteng Community Safety Portfolio Committee Chairperson in the Gauteng Legislature. Good morning and thank you for your time. Let me start with the question about this incident and the death of these community patrollers. How have you received it and interpreted it within the bigger scheme of the fight against crime in Gauteng?
Good morning, and good morning to your listeners, and thank you for having us on your show. I think one of the important and worrying factors is the intimidation to the policing system that we have seen, because it's an important aspect of policing to have the community involved in patrolling and in also keeping their communities safe in the assistance of the police.
So there's a question, though, that arises. Should ordinary citizens be expected to be patrolling their own streets at those hours of the morning? Isn't there, more to be said for the role of deploying more police officers to patrol the streets, and yes, the community gets involved in other ways at safer times when the likelihood of danger is lessened? I don't know if you get the question that I'm asking, that should this responsibility that taxpayers have already paid for be settled with communities as opposed to deploying and, the streets are patrolled? Because in many of these communities, there's a feeling that these community patrollers end up replacing police officers instead of supplementing what they do.
Yeah, I think the most important aspect, Thulasizwe, is that they are not supposed to replace the police. They are supposed to complementing and actually making sure that they assist, not in a way of replacing them. And, the level of their policing shouldn't be at the level of what we require from the police service itself. We do acknowledge, I think, in all respect, that there is a big shortage of police officers on the ground. And I think what we have said before as a committee is that we welcome every effort that is put in place to make sure that we have enough law enforcement agencies who collaborate and work together in making sure they keep our streets safe.
Because objectively speaking, Dr. Masuku, you and I can agree that there isn't enough patrolling in communities such as these informal settlements. That I think you and I can both agree on.
We can agree about it, and it's also that there are other difficulties that emanate from policing informal settlements. Besides that, the informal settlements themselves are not planned and they are not managed properly in terms of establishment of these informal settlements, which then puts a big constraint in terms of resources to all services, including the police service. The other aspect is just the lack of access and lack of roads and the issues of home addresses or street addresses that could make it very difficult for even the direct response from the actual police.
All right, let's leave it there for this morning. Thank you for your time. That's Dr. Bandile Masuku. He's the chairperson of the Portfolio Committee on Community Safety in the Gauteng Legislature. Let's check in now with Kulufelo Tefu with the latest news.
Outsurance will go out of their way to try and save you money on your car insurance. If they can't, ask for 500 Rand. SMS out to 30754. Now that's good news.
Thanks to Thulasizwe. Top stories this hour: public hearings on the budget to get underway and Motlanthe part of panel to facilitate DRC peace talks. Good morning. Parliament will today start public hearings into the budget. This as public sector workers are demanding a speedy resolution to the current budget standoff, saying many government departments are already in crisis. Finance Minister Gauteng announced 23 billion rand in additional funding to cover the 5.5% public servant salary increase in the next 3 years. The workers are expecting the increase to take effect next Tuesday. COSATU's Matthew Paul Park says budget is not likely to be passed by the 1st of next month, but the agreement should be honoured.
We do need a budget being passed. We can't afford for Parliament not to pass a budget because that would mean that no new expenditure can be undertaken. That will put at risk workers' salaries, social grants to the poor, investments in the economy and infrastructure, and so on. The most critical one, rather, is tomorrow, where we'll make our submission as COSATU on what we think needs to be retained in the budget. For example, the key progressive items which we think are going to help workers, like the public sector wage agreement, like filling critical frontline vacancies in the state, reinforcing frontline departments which had been really decimated by austerity budget cuts over the year.
In Limpopo, the taxi industry is optimistic that the province's 2025 to 2026 budget allocations will cover the improvement of road infrastructure. Finance MEC Khabo Mahwai is expected to deliver the provincial budget speech today. Limpopo Santaco spokesperson is Franz Nwebe.
The reason is the route. The route is not good. If we can increase it, the budget, Meskin, Department of Public Works, he can go and fix up the routes because the route is not right.
The National Union of Metal Workers of South Africa says the looming increase in value-added tax is a serious concern for workers. The union has convened a 3-day bargaining conference which started in Sandton, Johannesburg, yesterday. It brings together shop stewards from all the 9 provinces. The aim is to consolidate the demands of workers in various sectors. NUMSA's General Secretary is Evan Jim.
The fact that CPI is at 3% and traditionally the main sectors that are negotiating are sectors where we always secure 3-year agreements. So we're not going to be swayed by any idea that we can't negotiate and improve workers' wages and benefits because we are facing a state of an economy that is challenged.
Former President Kgalema Motlanthe has been appointed to a panel of facilitators of peace talks in the conflict in the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo. This as leaders of the Southern African Development Community and East African Community seek to resolve the conflict. SADC chairperson, Zimbabwe's President Emmerson Mnangagwa and his EAC counterpart and Kenya's President William Ruto organized a virtual meeting in which they announced Motlanthe's appointment. President Cyril Ramaphosa represented South Africa in the meeting. Kylie Kumalo has the story.
As part of infusing momentum in resolving the Congo crisis, the SADC and EAC leaders have revealed that former South African President Kgalema Motlanthe will be joined by a number of leaders such as former Nigerian President Olusegun Obasanjo, ex-Kenyan President Uhuru Kenyatta and others. The 2 blocs want to implement immediate, medium and long-term measures to achieve peace in the DRC. Another meeting is on the cards involving the panel of facilitators, including SADC, EAC and the African Union. Kylie Kumalo, SABC News, Johannesburg.
And finally, further afield, police in Istanbul have fired tear gas as massive crowds protest for 6 successive nights. The protesters are demanding the release of the city's mayor, Ekrem İmamoğlu, Turkey's main opposition presidential candidate. He's been arrested and charged with corruption. There have also been clashes in the Turkish capital, Ankara. The opposition CHP party says the huge rallies outside City Hall in Istanbul will end today. Recapping the top story this hour, Parliament will today start public hearings into the budget. This as public sector workers are demanding a speedy resolution to the current budget standoff, saying many government departments are already in crisis. Headlines at 7:30 for SAFM News. I'm Kolofelo Defo.
Those were the top stories for this hour. Don't miss out on a possible car insurance saving. SMS out to 30754 for a quote. Outsurance, where you always get something out.
50 Rand petrol won't get you anywhere nowadays, but Outsurance is still dedicated to saving you money on your car insurance. Get a quote, and if Outsurance can't beat your car insurance premium, ask them for 500 Rand cash. And make that 1,500 Rand cash if you've been claim-free and with the same insurer for 3 years. Get monthly savings on your car insurance or cash in your pocket. SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754. With Outsurance, you always get something out. A licensed insurer and FSP, T's and C's online.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Well, it's a very busy Tuesday on the highways in Joburg. Multiple crash scenes. One of the big ones, the N1 North, going into Buccleuch. That's heavy from Randburg this morning, all the way up through towards that scene, that collision after Rivonia, just before you get to the Buccleuch interchange. Crash coming out of the airport on the R24 at Barber Road, causing delays. The N3 North is heavy as you line up from Germiston up to a crash at Galulis. And the Mike 1 under pressure all the way from Ormonde, passing a crash at Crown, and then a closure of the Smith Street off-ramp, we think due to some flooding. Joe Slovo drives pretty heavily back coming from the M2 through Duranfontein as well on your way through to Hillbrow. Crash going into Pietermaritzburg before Ashburton. Long backlogs of traffic through to the Linfield Park area. Cape Town, everything on a go slow this morning. It's noticeably slower on account of the weather conditions. Make sure you've got plenty of time to get through the traffic. There's also roadworks on the N7, Jakes Herveld Drive south into Voortrekker, so that's quite heavy. And a reminder, if you're just joining us, about the taxi strike in East London, multiple routes are being blocked off across the region. A tough morning for drivers, a tough morning for taxi commuters whose taxi probably in all likelihood won't come along. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
A very good morning to you in your SFM Sports Headlines. Soccer, Bafana forward Percy Tau says their strategic approach in the 2026 FIFA World Cup Africa Group C qualifier against Benin tonight will be key. And in rugby, the Bulls are dealt another injury blow against their URC Championship clash. It will be against the Zebra, and it's the Springbok Willie Leroux out of action. All the details around 7:30.
The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m. The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
9 minutes after 7 on this Tuesday, we're into the second hour of the Morning Brief here on SAFM. I'm Thulasizwe Simelane. It's great to be in your company this morning. Let me tell you what's coming up. We'll start with a focus on that issue between South Africa and the United States, particularly as it relates to what, in South African speak, it has been termed a reset of the relationship with the United States. Well, to do that, you kind of need top diplomats in both capitals, in Pretoria and Washington. But as you and I speak this morning, there are vacancies for the top diplomats in both countries. What are the implications of there being no, ambassadors deployed to each other's capitals? And how do you get the conversation going to try and reset that relationship without those ambassadors having been appointed? But importantly, over and above throwing names of people that we believe would make strong candidates for ambassador to the United States, what qualities are we looking for? What kind of strategic access are we hoping that the next ambassador to the United States will have that arguably Ambassador Ibrahim Rasool could not gain? In fact, not arguably, he actually said it himself that he tried the conventional diplomacy, it didn't work, and then he turned to the diplomacy of Ubuntu, which landed him in that situation where he was declared persona non grata. In the next few minutes, I'll be in conversation with Professor John Strimlau, and I'll also play you a clip of what Ambassador Rasool said that reveals the subtle nuances, perhaps, that are at play in as far as the United States is concerned at this very moment. And then we'll focus on the role of the role of Deputy Chief Justice. This is a role in the leadership of the judiciary in the country that has been vacant since then. Deputy Chief Justice Mandi Samaya ascended to the top post and became the Chief Justice of the country. She assumed office on the 1st of September. So that position of Deputy Chief Justice has been open and vacant since the 1st of September, and pressure is mounting on President Cyril Ramaphosa to make a substantive appointment because the lobby organizations and civil society organizations are arguing that this is a critical position that can't be left unfilled for as long as has happened. So that pressure is mounting. I'll be in conversation with Mbegazeli Benjamin over the next few minutes. In all of this, do give me a call on these and other matters that may be exercising your mind this morning. The number to dial is 086 000-2032. I'll take your WhatsApp voice notes on 061-410-4107. This is SAFM. We are leading the conversations that move us. The second hour of the Tuesday edition of the Morning Brief starts now.
Turn your vision into reality with Vodacom Business. Get the Samsung Galaxy S25 on a Red Business 1.7 gig contract for 1,129 Rand per month over 24 months. Enhance your deal. Add 69 Rand extra per month over 24 months and get the Samsung Galaxy Watch 7 eSIM. Available in-store and online. T's and C's apply. Further together. Vodacom Business.
Honey, what are you doing?
I'm stretching for tonight.
I thought you're not dancing at bachelorette parties anymore.
Baby, we need the money to put Johnny through matric mos.
And what's the police uniform for?
The clients feel safer when I wear it.
No, man, just sell your bakkie to We Buy Cars. They give the best prices and they pay you within minutes.
Okay, but can I just go and dance one more time, please? You know how much I love it.
No, the buyer's already on his way here.
Wow, okay.
Strapped for cash? Just sell your vehicle to We Buy Cars. The easiest way to sell your car by far.
Thulasizwe Simelane on the Morning Brief. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
All right, both the posts of U.S. ambassador to South Africa and South African ambassador to the United States are currently vacant following the unceremonious end to Ambassador Ibrahim Rasool's tenure in Washington. This at a time when relations between the two countries are arguably at an all-time low. Rasool landed back in the country over the past weekend after being expelled by the Trump administration, who have labeled him a race-baiting politician who hates America. Addressing supporters when he landed back in Cape Town, Rasool hinted, I say, at the subtle nuances that he believes may be at play in choosing his replacement.
Our relationship with America over 50 years has not always been with the White House. It has sometimes been with Congress, and it has always been with the people of the United States of America. When the White House and Congress declared us as terrorists, it was the dock workers in San Francisco that refused to touch South African goods. When Congress did not want to have sanctions, it was the American people who did not eat our fruit and did not touch our goods. And so we have this relationship that we must reset and we must rebuild. And we must hope that President Cyril Ramaphosa will be able to pick up where we left off. But we cannot have a simplistic idea that while we say there must be an ambassador, that you must put a white ambassador for a white president in the United States.
Yeah, so that's just an excerpt from that speech delivered by Ambassador Ibrahim Rasool upon his arrival in Cape Town. Let's welcome into the conversation Professor John Stremlau, who is a Wits University Honorary Professor of International Relations. Good morning to you, Prof. Thank you for your time. I played that clip particularly for that last bit where Ambassador Rasool alludes to the race of the next ambassador to Washington, and saying that we must not be naive to say that we should appoint a white ambassador just for the sake of getting along with a white president in the United States. It suggests to me, I don't know if you would agree, that he believes that there's a subtlety that's at play there that has to do with considerations of certain, even immutable characteristics of the person to be deployed in Washington.
Well, Thulasizwe, I couldn't agree more with Ambassador Rasool. This is a time to cool down and contemplate what America means to South Africa, far greater than the Trump administration. The Trump administration clearly wants to undermine the values and the democracy of South Africa. But it also has its preoccupations, and now with the economy deteriorating and people and the oligarchs wanting to get on board with protecting their wealth, I just don't see any percentage in amplifying this ambassadorship question. And the divisions that would be sowed in a fight between the members of the GNU, it's not worth it. It's not worth it at all.
So a lot of names, it's been a favorite pastime of talk radio hosts like myself to ask people for names of who should replace Ambassador Rasool in Washington. A lot of names are being put forward. Given what you just said about the agenda of the Trump administration, the importance of the relationship, the frustrations that clearly came through from Ambassador Rasool about not being, given the kind of audience that perhaps he would have wanted as an ambassador through the normal diplomatic channels. What should we be looking for in the next ambassador to Washington?
I wouldn't think that's the right question, frankly. I think Rasool described the relationship between Americans and South Africans as robust, and certainly South Africa has a lot of friends in the world. Recently, the European Union may have had disagreements on policies toward Ukraine and Russia, but it came down here and pledged 94 billion rand for exactly the kinds of things that Trump in climate change and in vaccine research has dismissed and crippled in his addressing egregious actions by the Republic of South Africa. I mean, you can't do business with this Trump administration, so you do business with others, and you do business with Americans more generally, and people like myself and others, and get on with it. His statement that he issued on Sunday was really a very measured and thoughtful, and I commend it to you. By Ambassador Rasool, starting with, it's good to feel the dignity of being an African.
Yeah. So is there a scenario in which, Prof, we send an ambassador to President Ramaphosa? Let me put it, because we don't send an ambassador. President Ramaphosa sends an ambassador to the United States, and the Trump administration simply refuses to accept the credentials. And I've heard people saying that South Africa should do the same. Could that be a scenario where, for instance, the United States sends someone like Joel Pollack and President Ramaphosa just never makes time to receive those credentials, and Washington does exactly the same, and we are in this pattern for the next 4 years?
Well, this pattern is unlike any pattern I've ever seen before, and so I wouldn't think that the 4 years, you're going to have congressional elections next year and by-elections, and you're already moving ahead in a popular unrest over the Trump policies that are endemic to the United States, and Ambassador Rasool was right to mention dock workers and working classes and others who are a part of that 43% that's a swing vote in the U.S. and that's up for grabs. And I think the South Africans should maintain their dignity and their pride in the achievements that they have achieved, and play to the coalitions that are willing to support. This DRC that you were mentioning earlier, initiative that former president is going to go with Obasanjo and others. That's exactly the kind of thing that you should focus on, and not focus on this ambassador question.
Gotcha. Thank you for your time this morning. That's Professor John Stremlau, who is a Wits University Honorary Professor of International Relations.
What would your school do with 10 return flights from FlySafair? Imagine the possibilities: sports trips, cultural tours, and the opportunity to unlock your learner's talent and potential. That's right, FlySafair's School Booster is back, and your school could be one of 10 to win 10 return flights to any SA destination. Enter at flysafair.co.za and tell us how this prize could give your school a boost. Entry closed 27 March. FlySafair, for the love of flying. T's and C's apply.
Something big is coming. 6:30 will never be the same. Amalanga Wafani, only on SABC 1.
Whether it is a CCMA referral, problems with a mechanic, or unfair blacklisting, Clientele legal plans are affordable
and you receive up to 670,000 rands worth of legal services per year. We cover civil, criminal, and labor-related matters. Our legal team will be your support 24 hours a day. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195. Clientele General is an authorized FSP and a licensed non-life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
Across South Africa, online and on radio. SAFM, let's talk.
It's coming up to 23 minutes after 7. Pressure is mounting for President Cyril Ramaphosa to appoint a permanent Deputy Chief Justice. The post has been vacant since current Chief Justice Mandisa Maya vacated it in September last year to ascend to the judiciary's top post. Complicating matters further for the president is the fact that the current acting Deputy Chief Justice, Justice Mbuyiseli Madlanga's term of office is due to end in July this year. Let's speak to Mbegezeli Benjamin, Research and Advocacy Officer at Judges Matter. Good morning to you, Mbegezeli. Thank you for your time. Why is the situation untenable where we have an acting Deputy Chief Justice for the last, 7-8 months?
Good morning to us and good morning to the listeners. Well, the situation is untenable because of the important role that the Deputy Chief Justice plays in our legal system. They are the second in command in terms of the judiciary. And so one would expect that the president by now would have appointed a permanent person to fill that position. Justice Madlanga has acted in the position for the last 7 months, you're quite correct, but it is not, it shouldn't be the case. It's already over 200 days since the Chief Justice was appointed. So the president was well aware that there needed to be a Deputy Chief Justice. We just don't know why he has waited for over 200 days to do so.
So tell us a bit more then about the role that the Deputy Chief Justice plays in supporting the work of the Chief Justice, but also in as far as, improving the efficiencies within the judicial system and enabling access to justice.
Yeah, so the DCJ plays a crucial role in presiding in the Constitutional Court in the absence of the Chief Justice. Usually there will be a division between cases that the DCJ will preside over and those that the CJ will preside over. Because the CJ runs the entire system, there'll be several hearings that she does not sit in, so the DCJ needs to be available for that. The second crucial role is that the DCJ ordinarily serves as the chair of the disciplinary function of the judiciary, which is the Judicial Conduct Committee. It is a small committee, but it is inundated with work. And so the DCJ has to oversee that work is done as efficiently as possible. We always complain that the complaints against judges are taking far too long. That's precisely because that system is not manned by a permanent DCJ. So there are a number of other functions in the judiciary where there is a crucial role for the DCJ, and we need a permanent person in place because, like you mentioned earlier, Justice Madlanga retires in about 3 months' time. And so we can't really wait until he eventually leaves for the position to be filled.
Is the delay inordinate, Mbegezeli, in the sense that are you at a point where you are now concerned? If I'm not mistaken, the recommended names, the potential replacements, the likes of Gauteng Judge President Dunstan Mlambo, Justice Leona Teron, Justice Majid, would have emanated from a process undertaken when? In April last year already, yeah?
No, actually, the process is entirely in the hands of President Ramaphosa.
Yes.
He needs to nominate a candidate who will then be scrutinized by both Parliament and the JSC before the appointment is made. But your question is quite correct, Thulas, because in the past, in 2022, when Justice Zondo was appointed as Chief Justice, the President immediately announced Justice Maya as Deputy Chief Justice. So we saw no reason why he should depart from that practice and immediately name the DCJ. Now it has become untenable in that it has taken 200 days for him to act, but we still feel that he should get the process rolling because there will still need to be interviews done by the JSC, and there will still need to be consultations done with leaders of political parties in parliament.
Yeah, so this says you've never seen a delay of this kind, have you?
Look, in the past, like I said, in 2022, the president acted efficiently and was able to fill the position. There was only one other instance where there was a significant delay, which was when Deputy Chief Justice Moseneke retired. But that was because there was a transition where we at some point we had three presidents, where we had President Zuma and then President Motlanthe, then Zuma, then Ramaphosa in quick succession. So that was the only unique circumstance. But this time around, there is no reason why it is taking so long.
And some of the leading names that I just mentioned, are those the leading names for a potential replacement for the now Chief Justice Mandisa Maya in the position of Deputy Chief Justice?
Yes, in our view, when we look at the requirements needed for the role of Deputy Chief Justice and the qualities that one does need, we sort of looked at who in the judiciary would be potential candidates. And one of those people is Judge President Mlambo of the Gauteng High Court, who has acting experience in the Constitutional Court, but also runs the biggest court system in the country, and so does know the judiciary quite well. We looked at other justices of the Constitutional Court, including Justice Leona Theron, Justice Stefan Majid, and we saw those as also potential candidates. But like I said, Section 175(1) of the Constitution makes clear that it is a decision of the President of the Republic of South Africa. And so we hope that the President does consider those names.
So he is spoiled for choice. It's not like he doesn't have capable candidates. Mbegazeli, lastly, before we wrap this up, I'd like your comment on, I don't know if you saw the draft directive by the Gauteng Judge President Dunstan Mlambo, basically trying to address this untenable situation where people are waiting until 2031 for dates for civil trials. And in doing that, he's basically cancelled all civil trials, well, in terms of that draft draft directive to come into effect on the 14th of April. The proposition is to cancel all civil trials set down from 1 January 2027 and only re-enroll when the parties come with a certificate that basically proves that you've tried mediation. Mediation, therefore, no longer being optional as it is right now, but actually being mandatory. Will this help solve the situation?
Well, one thing that will help, Thulas, is just to increase the number of judges in Gauteng and across the high courts in the country. We have not had an increase in the number of judges since 2008. And in those 15 years since, the population of Gauteng has grown by more than 50%. And so when you have a situation where the courts are overburdened and you don't increase the staff complement of those courts, you'd inevitably see the kinds of delays where people are waiting 5 years for a trial date. So this directive has to be seen in that context, in that it is trying to ease the burden on the courts, because what the statistics show is that almost 85% of trials are settled on the morning of the trial, and by then the judge would have spent hours and hours preparing for the trial, and it is settled. And so mediation in this way is a tool or a remedy to try and weed out some of those cases, and only those that are absolutely deserving for a trial will then be left to be decided by a judge.
All right, let's leave it there for this morning. Thank you for your time. That's Mbegazeli Benjamin, who is Research and Advocacy Officer at Judges Matter. Let's check in with Khulufelo Tefo with the latest news headlines.
Thanks to Thulasizwe. In the headlines, the SAWA President Cyril Ramaphosa will this morning address the Democratic Nursing Organization of South Africa's 9th Congress in Birchwood in eastern Johannesburg. The Congress will deal with issues related to the implementation of the National Health Insurance and conditions under which nurses will work. Parliament will again hear this morning into the budget speech. This as public sector workers are demanding a speedy resolution to the current budget standoff, saying many government departments are already in crisis. And further afield, Argentina's President Javier Milei has announced that he will declassify all intelligence files relating to the period under which the country was under military rule. Details at 8.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
I was having a look at volumes around the country this morning, thinking, yeah, it's noticeably busier. Then it dawned on me it's the 25th, it's payday, and it really does make a difference. There is so much more traffic. Last couple of days, since late last week and yesterday, we saw some very sort of easy traffic conditions, but with that pay in the bank, petrol in the car, off we go. So very busy. N1, a crash before Malabongwe. It's probably closer to Bayers Nordia. 14th Avenue up into that scene's heavy. Then you get some really heavy stuff from Malabongwe all the way around to a crash at Buccleuch. Collision coming out of the airport on the R24 at Barber Road, still holding things up. Very heavy on the Mike 1 this morning from Ormonde all the way through to about Corlett Drive in the Melrose area. Crash north of Galuli's, now on the N3 up by Linksfield. That's heavy from Germiston, N12 and R24. It's in from Ekurhuleni bad. And the roadworks on the R21, slowing traffic from Tembisa down towards that R23 Benoni exit. Motorists driving up towards Pietermaritzburg, a truck crash before Ashburton. Very heavy delays from Linfield Park. A crash going towards the airport just before Gateway. So that's a heavy queue from Queen Nundy Drive. So the N2 north this morning is heavy from the M7 through to Westwood Mall and then Queen Nundy through towards the crash. So make sure you've got plenty of time. Southern Freeway's heavy through Jacobs up into Clarewood direction, Rossborough. Cape Town, everything on a go slow on account of some wet weather conditions and the greater volumes. The N7 is a standout. Goodwood through to Bosmansdam Road going north. Southbound, there's some roadworks on the N7 at 4 Trekker Road causing backlogs and a lot of traffic around the Frans Conradi Mike Pina option, sort of between Belleville and Parrots. A lot of unusual congestion through that part of town. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Zai, good morning to you once again. So top of Group C but can't afford to be complacent Bafana. And Percy Tau is speaking exactly to that, talking about the approach that Bafana take this evening against Benin being everything, yeah?
Yeah, it is. We are top, that's right. And we're just hoping we don't Benin and out. So.
Oh, wow, Zai. That's such a dead joke. Benin out.
All right, so let's just go to Percy Tau now, because tonight kickoff 6 p.m. in Abidjan, South Africa leading Group C, and we want to touch that dream, that ticket to USA, Canada and Mexico.
It's important. It's important to try and analyze the games, which one to win, which one to play well and get the win, which one not to play well and get the win. Yes. So it's also different. It's also about the demands of the game. Some demands are different. It demands us to fight, to work hard, which we have not seen in the past with us. But now it's there. We are trying also to say if the game is not allowing us to play our normal game, we'll try and do it in a different way, because we also need some points at some time. And yeah, we'll play the good football. We'll show how good we are. But sometimes we have to fight to get the results, and it's going to be the same against next game. We know we are going to have a course. It's going to be difficult against Benin. It's our last game against them. But we also understand that Nigeria is coming up. So it's also important for us to try and separate as much as possible. But it's going to be a fight against Benin, and we'll also try and give them a fight. It's not going to be an easy one. But we'll fight. We'll fight to get the 3 points there.
That's the Bafana forward, Percy Tau, on the morning brief. Now, Thomas Partey and Mohamed Kudus strengthened Ghana's bid for a place at the 2026 FIFA World Cup. 4-time continental champions Ghana failed to reach the 2025 Africa Cup of Nations, but the Black Stars sit 5 points clear of second place Madagascar following their 3-0 away victory against the Islanders. Now, the Eagles, that's the Ivory Coast, they are third, 6 points behind Ghana with 4 rounds of the 10-game campaign remaining. Now, Ivory Coast moved to the top of Group F, a point ahead of Gabon, as Sebastian Heller's first half header was enough to settle that home encounter with Gambia. Now, former FIFA President Sepp Blatter and France football great Michel Platini will appear before a Swiss court today to hear whether the case that finished their careers in football will end with their acquittals or convictions for corruptions. The pair, once again, the most powerful figures in global soccer, will appear at the Extraordinary Appeals Chamber of the Swiss Criminal Court, and that's so after they were acquitted of fraud 2.5 years ago. To cricket action, Ashutosh Sharma's unbeaten 66 of 31 balls helped the Delhi Capitals clinch a one-wicket victory over the Lucknow Super Giants in the Indian Premier League. And finally, tennis, Emma Raducanu is through to the quarterfinals of the Miami Open. She beat the 17th seed Amanda Anisimova 6-1, 6-3. Here's Raducanu.
And since she's obviously won Doha and the Masters and top 20 now, so yeah, I was expecting like a really difficult match, and I knew I had to do my best to kind of dig out every point that I could. And from the start, I was really proud of how I tried to make every ball, tried to run down a lot of things, and it was quite hot and humid today. So yeah, I also backed, I guess, my fitness in these conditions today.
Alrighty then, that's where we wrap it up on the morning brief. We'll serve up more tennis. That's top of the hour. I'm Zai Khan.
The Business Update on SAFM.
Hey, Ndaulen, good morning to you once again. Here's another one of those businesses that I get the feeling that you and I should be in on this, right? Tell me about a jump in enrollments boosting Advitech.
Now, the private education player that has both schools and tertiary facilities says it has achieved a milestone by surpassing 100,000 students for the first time. Now, this growth is due to double-digit increases across its schools and tertiary divisions, driven by expansions in the country and the rest of Africa. Now, Advitech's tertiary segment saw a 14% increase in student numbers, reaching 60,067, while the schools division grew by 11% to 45,643 students. The company's revenue rose by 8%, while earnings increased 16%. Now, the group that owns schools like Crawford College and Trinity House also made significant investments in its infrastructure, including a 420 million rand property acquisition in Sandton, which will be developed into a new campus with a capacity for 11,000 students. Now, Advitech also has ambitious plans for the future, aiming to be recognized as a fully fledged university. Currently, its tertiary institutions such as Varsity College and Rosebank College are classified as private tertiary institutions rather than universities. Now, the reason for this distinction lies in the fact that these institutions offer a limited range of degrees compared to traditional universities, and they also lack university accreditation. However, Advitech says it is actively working towards achieving university status.
So it would seem then, in Ndaulen, that perhaps I'm wrong. It's not a company we should be in on. It's a sector, the private education sector. Because Stadio as well, you are going to tell us, has delivered double-digit profit growth.
And really, that sector, Tula, is proving to be quite defensive, managing to deliver growth even as households are under pressure. And you can just see what households, what consumers are deeming important and where they're spending their money. And we are seeing this in Stadio's results. Higher education firm that was unbundled from Curo managed to deliver an 8% rise in student enrollments, which boosted revenue that came in 14% higher, while earnings jumped 28%. Now, the group continues to benefit from an influx of students as public universities are full. It's seeing a growth in both the distance and contact learning. Stadio is pursuing an 80% distance learning and 20% contact learning strategy, and the growing contact learning numbers alongside a strong financial performance and robust cash flow have positioned the group for expansion, particularly with the construction of its new Durbanville campus in the Western Cape. That campus is set to open in 2026. Now, interestingly, during the full year period, the group hit the 50,000 student mark. Company's CEO Chris Foster says he expects to hit the 56,000 student target by 2026 and 80,000 in the next 5 years. Now, this is from about 840 students when it started in 2017. So that growth really, really massive. Now, Stadio houses institutions like AFDA, Mopark Education, and Stadio Higher Education. I think the growing demand for, tertiary education, as evident in Advotech, Stadio's expansion plans, just highlights the need for increased access to higher education. And I think it's a concern, that warrants, government attention here.
Absolutely, yeah. And innovation, and Dowling, innovation to ensure that as demand grows, various avenues are made available for people to be able to pursue higher education. On that note, give us a sense of how the markets are looking here at home and elsewhere in the world.
So kicking things off in Asia, stocks mixed, mostly in the red, as investors resorted to some profit taking in the absence of strong catalysts. Hong Kong's Hang Seng feeling the most pressure, led by losses in tech firms and car makers. The index shedding over 2% this hour. Then over in Wall Street, futures also in the red, a sharp contrast from yesterday's upbeat finish. While there's speculation of less harsher reciprocal tariffs, traders still seem to be concerned about the overall impact of these policies on the inflation and growth picture. Then coming back home, trade choppy with stocks mostly in negative territory. The all-share closing 0.6% in the red in yesterday's session. The rand, however, holding up well against major currencies, sitting at 18.24 to the dollar.
All right, thank you for that. We'll catch up with you a bit later on. That's Ntawling Lechela. She'll be back just after 8:30, in which update she will then give you a sense of how the markets will be looking on this Tuesday.
The Cheetahs are very hungry for victory. However, Bafana say they are in the business of collecting 3 points. The West battles it out with the South. This is the FIFA World Cup 2026 African qualifier. Experience the delight of African football. Benin versus South Africa on Tuesday, 25 March at 5:30 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4, S3, and at 6 p.m. on SABC radio stations. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Africa Update on SAFM.
Let's say good morning to Raz Sipomantula. Raz, let's start with this situation in the DRC and the mediation efforts of the various regional blocs. You're telling us this morning that Angola has ended its mediation process. Why?
Good morning, Tulas, and Jumbo Africa to the listeners. The President of the Republic of Angola yesterday, Tulas, announced that they have taken the decision to end its mediation efforts based on two things, Tulas, and I think this is based on what we know, that the Doha process. And secondly, the external interference of the sanctions against M23. But thirdly, which I think it is very clear, it is that Angola is the chair of the AU now, Tulas. So they have said that they need to shift their focus to broader continental priorities, which will include peace, infrastructure, economic development, and justice for all Africans. And as you know, Tulas, we know that both Tshisekedi, Kagame went to Doha, to Qatar, and undermined the Luanda process. But also the EU, by issuing the sanctions against Rwanda and the M23, already have dampened the efforts of Angola as a mediator. And as we know, Tulas, this will put others in a serious language. They'll say they are putting a peace process in a limbo. And now we can see the signs of the de-escalation from both sides. But this peace process, it seems it's in Qatar now, or it is still with the SADC and East Africa community.
Yeah, so in fact, let's delve a bit deeper into that then. You're telling us that there was this East Africa Community SADC summit, and it was held virtually, and has taken some decisions on what approach to take with the mediation in the DRC.
Tulas, listening to the chairperson of SADC, Emerson Damutso Mnangagwa, last night, but also looking who was present in that meeting. Once again, Tshisekedi skipping that meeting. Kagame confirmed in that meeting, but I did not see the confirmation. Many presidents actually skipped that meeting. Only President Ramaphosa, William Ruto, President Mnangagwa, and some of the key leaders of the SADC. Lorenzo was not there, but Mnangagwa emphasized the issue that both Goma and even the Bukavu airport are still no-go areas to us, that there is still challenge of dealing with the political and the what we call political mediation process, because he said that a military intervention is not the solution for the crisis in the Eastern DRC. Willem Ruto also emphasizing that the issue of the joint defense ministers of assisting the phasing out also of SADC, but also how do you manage the UN mission that is in the DRC that has to end towards the end of the year, Thulas. So this meeting, you can say, Thulas, was fruitful, but at the same time, there was a challenge of this report that I've just made of Angola pulling out as a mediator in this conflict.
Lots of diplomatic activities, Sipho, between Ghana, Morocco, and Russia in the mix as well. Tell me firstly about Ghana and Morocco and the kind of decisions that they are making about travel between the two countries, as well as the meeting between Ghana and Russia.
So that's a very interesting meeting between the diplomats of both countries from Accra and Rabat. And now coming from Accra is that the Minister of Foreign Affairs announced that they've agreed with the government of Morocco to waive the visa requirements for all travelers between the two countries. Others seeing it as strengthening diplomatic and economic ties. So as we know, the issues of agribusiness, tourism, security was also engaged between the Foreign Affairs Minister of Ghana as well as the Morocco ambassador to Ghana, Imani Kwadil. As we're going to Moscow and also Ghana, we see Moscow also engaging with Ghana on bilateral. The ambassador of Ghana of Russia in Ghana, Sergei Bernikov, discussing the issues that are key to us of the global peace process between Russia and Ukraine, and Ghana maintaining that they will stand neutral on this conflict. So as you have said, this was an interesting meeting of Ghana, having the two governments, both Morocco as well as Russia.
Yeah. And this is an interesting one, Sipho. Cybercrime, but not just cybercrime, the ability to coordinate the response beyond borders. So a multinational response. Tell me about this operation.
This is a great mission, considering that we are talking about fourth industrial revolution. People are in the social media spaces. And being the month end also to us today is that people, they become victims of these cyber activities that are happening. Interpol, Africa Joint Operation Against Cybercrime in the UK Foreign Office, supported by cyber security firm, had to deal with cases between last year to last and this year. Just last month, they call it Operation Red Card, a cross-border fraud networks exploiting mobile banking, investment platforms, messaging apps, where more than 5,000 victims were identified. Which countries to us are at the top? We know Nigeria. They've arrested more than 130 people to us, and they've taken almost 26 vehicles, 16 houses, 685 devices. South Africa cannot be immune. SIM box fraud scheme to us arrested 40 suspects, also with 1,000 SIM cards, the use of the laptops, the desktops, and this phishing attacks to us where people get SMSs for no reason. Zambia, 14 hackers so far. Rwanda, sitting with 45 suspects, where it was a fraudster to us getting into family members and stealing financial data. And finally, Benin, Cote d'Ivoire, and Togo to us was also the three countries of interest in this Operation Red Card.
Look, the good thing is that we are starting to see that kind of multinational work being able to respond, because I think for a while there was uncertainty. How do you deal with such things as cyber crimes? Lastly, Sipho, in your historical archives, take me back to 25 March 1960. It was a seminal year, wasn't it?
It was a seminal year. It was the banning order that was issued against Professor Mangaliso Sobukwe, still on the Shavilanga massacre month, that Professor Mangaliso Sobukwe was banished to Driefontein Native Trust Farm in Vryburg district. It was under the then Northern Cape, now Northwest Province. But Prof could not stay in that farm. Thulas was already indicted. There were cases against him. The Sobukwe clause came and he was jailed during that. So he could not go for the banishment in Vryburg, but we know he went to banishment in Kimberley. And also Thulas on this day, 5 years ago, President Ramaphosa expressing sorrow at the passing of the renowned traditional healer, prophet, author, cultural historian Isanusi Baba Vosabazulu Mpumelelo Credo Mutwa at the age of 98. Remember that book, Thulas Indaba, My Children, that have sold over 250 copies. This is the story that the nation had to bow. And it was during that COVID situation, Thulas, of the lockdown. I remember vividly that one of the cases of people not traveling province to province, the case of Credo Muta, was an exception because his family had to come from Singa, KZN, they had to come from Soweto, they have to come from Mahikeng to go to Kimberley. So this was an important day in our historical archive. Asante sana Thulas, as I see in the conversation, SFM observing the Shavdilanga massacre.
Sipho, thank you for that. That's Sipho Mantula there with your Africa update here on the Morning Brief.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
We're keeping an eye on the taxi strike around the East London region this morning. The biggest sort of backlog of traffic seems to be north of East London on the N6 at Wings Park. So if you're doing the Stutterheim East London run, maybe just delay that because the N6 is currently blocked in both directions through there. There was also a big truck crash earlier this morning between Stut and Cathcart. So that traffic may be logging. I'm zooming in onto my real-time set. It seems to be moving again. That's good news. Now, Joburg crashes all over the show. The N1 going north, a crash near Bayers Nordia, and then one up by Buccleuch interchange. So you put all that together, it's very heavy. There's a lot of traffic between 14th Avenue and the Buccleuch interchange. Really heavy across all lanes through there. Crash N3 north going up through Galilees to Linksfield, so that's heavy from Germiston. And 12 and R24 routes in from Ekurhuleni. Slow crash coming out of the airport on the R24 at Barbara Road, causing a slowdown. And the Mike 1, the latest we have there, some very heavy traffic this morning from Ormonde up to about sort of Glenhove Road in the Houghton Estate area. Pretoria N1 South looking okay. Midrand, Brackfontein to New Road is fairly busy as it always is. Now, if you're Durban side this morning, there's been an earlier crash up by Gateway. That's been cleared, but it's being quickly replaced by a broken down vehicle. So the N2 North is queuing like this, coming from Toti. A crash at Prospector, and that's queue number 1. Roadworks north of Spaghetti Junction, that's queue number 2 from the M7, and then from Queen Nundy up towards Gateway. That is queue number 3. It really is heavy. Truck crash going into Ashburton this morning seems to be cleared. That traffic backlog from Linfield Park has moved on. Cape Town Marine Drive, worth a mention. Bloberg all the way through to Milner Road in Pardon Island, very heavy. And a lot of congestion around Blackheath. There's a crash on Range Road at Stellenbosch Arterial, and heavy pressure unusually around Mike Pina and Franz Conradi, that side of Paro Belleville. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
What would your school do with 10 return flights from Fly Sapphire? Imagine the possibilities. Sports trips, cultural tours, and the opportunity to unlock your learner's talent and potential. That's right. Fly Sapphire's School Booster is back, and your school could be one of 10 to win 10 return flights to any SA destination. Enter at flysapphire.co.za and tell us how this prize could give your school a boost. Entry closed 27 March. Fly Sapphire, for the love of flying. T's and C's apply.
Have you recently migrated to the new TV licenses payment website? Make sure your account stays active by registering again or resetting your password. Don't miss out on all the fantastic new features our brand new website offers. Get registered today and stay connected with us. With the new website, get your payments done quickly and hassle-free with a wide range of services. So make sure you register to take advantage of all the great client features. Visit www.tvlic.co.za today. TV licenses. Do it for the things that matter.
Thulasizwe Simelane on SAFM.
It's coming up to 5 to 8 on this Tuesday. Well, if you're looking to exact justice through litigation in the Gauteng provincial and local divisions of the High Court, that is in Pretoria and Johannesburg respectively, good luck finding a date for your matter to be heard by a judge. The two courts' civil trial roll is utterly and woefully clogged up, with some matters now being allocated dates as far away as 2031. That's at least 6 years away. In response, the province's Judge President, Dunstan Mlambo, has issued out a draft directive that has set tongues wagging among the legal practitioners operating out of those two courts. As per the draft directives, all civil trials already set down for dates from 1 January 2027 will be cancelled on the 14th of April and only re-enrolled when the parties involved apply for new trial dates with a mediation certificate attached. Sounds like a mouthful, but let's make sense of it all. I'm joined by Nthabiseng Dubazana, a legal expert from Dubazana Attorneys. Good morning to you, Nthabiseng. Thank you for your time. So your understanding then, what are the implications? All civil trials already set down from 1 January 2027, those are cancelled, and mediation goes from being optional to being mandatory. Will it
mandatory? Good morning, and thank you so much for having me. So, yes, and I guess in a bit of a way, no, in the sense that some matters probably the parties believe are not going to be settled. Then I believe Judge President, looking at the matters that are currently set on the roll, when looking at the summons and the pleas, etc., that are there, they believe that a mediation could be the better option. In other words, ADR can be the better option to resolve these matters. But the thing is, it's already been an issue with regard to dates since the year before last in any event, due to a shortage of judges. There was a directive that was issued last year, wherein dates were already being issued in 2030. That's from last year already. And then in January this year, the Judge President also sent out a communique saying that the Rule 41A, which is now this mediation that is being forced upon us, should be part of your matter as you go ahead. So in any event, ADR is supposed to be, in terms of Rule 41, capital letter A of the High Court rules, be part of our process as legal practitioners. But I think the downside here is that matters are already set down for trial, and them being removed means that the parties who are involved are now being dealt a very hard blow.
So it's an inconvenience, I imagine, that you will now have to go and try and get a matter re-enrolled, but you can only do so once you've tried mediation and you have a certificate from a mediator saying this matter can't be resolved via mediation. But do you have an appreciation, though, for the kind of challenge that the Judge President is trying to solve for? Because in terms of that Rule 41, capital A, you have a choice, but it seems many of the people that you guys represent are not choosing mediation.
That's very correct. And most practitioners, unfortunately, in our field, do not put it as an option to their clients to say, before we go to trial, before we go and do anything, is there a way for us to try and solve this thing? Before I put pen to paper and start drafting my summons or start drafting my founding affidavits, can I have you guys sit at a round table and see if we can minimize the issues? And then, only then, can we see that it's not working? Most of us don't do that as practitioners because obviously the longer the matter is in the courtroom, the more the client spends. Not all of us are that. Personally, I don't want a matter that's going to last 6 months in the courtroom. Doesn't make sense to me. If there's a way for us to minimize the issues, for us to come to an agreement, then we draft a settlement order. It is easier to put the matter on the unopposed roll with a settlement agreement, and that settlement agreement being made an order of court, instead of now we're going to spend 3.5 years in a court and going through trial.
Because the Judge President makes the argument that, objectively speaking, the overwhelming majority of matters that are on the rolls are actually matters that don't need to be heard by a judge, can be resolved one way or another.
100%, and most of the time it's civil matters, and civil can be arranged from family-related matters. This is your divorces, your children's court, all of that. And then, of course, the companies in terms of who the director did this or director did not do that, or there's a disagreement with regard to contracts between parties. This is something that you can take for ADR or take to a mediator to say, okay, these are the issues. What can we do to come together? And then those things are made a settlement agreement, and you put that settlement agreement on the court roll to say this can be made an order of court. But that also needs the parties themselves, not just the attorneys, their parties themselves, to actually be mature about the situation, because most of the time people chase the principle of the matter instead of what actually is the real root of the problem. And that's what usually costs them money. So if you show them the practicality that if we go for trial, you're looking at spending 500,000 Rand, instead of us mediating, we can spend up to 40,000 Rand. Maybe that would convince our clients to take the option of mediation instead of going to trial. So
very quickly, while you're talking about that, then let's make it practical for people listening to this. What is your message then? If I have a matter that I think, I'm fed up, I need to litigate against this person, what are you advising me? Not giving legal advice on the air, but what's the wise way to approach things going forward, given these considerations that it might take years before I even see a judge, by which time my interests would have been completely violated?
Yes. So the first thing, approach an attorney just to get an understanding of whether or not you do have a case that can be heard before a judge. That's the first thing. And if that attorney says there's a case that can be heard, is there a way for you to try and settle it and mediate it within the bounds of the law? And if the answer is yes, please rather go for that option. It saves you so much money, it saves you so much time, and then you can get your settlement in order of court.
All right, thank you for that. That's Ntabiseng Dubazana of Dubazana Attorneys. Let's check in now with Khulufelo Tefo with the latest news.
Thanks to Thulasizwe. Top stories this hour. President Ramaphosa to speak at Dunosa Congress, and Argentina's president orders declassification of intelligence files. Good morning. President Cyril Ramaphosa will this morning address the Democratic Nursing Organizations of South Africa's 9th Congress in Birchwood in eastern Johannesburg. The Congress will deal with issues related to the implementation of the National Health Insurance and conditions under which nurses will work. It will also look at post-COVID pandemic health challenges and the decision of the U.S. to withdraw aid for HIV and AIDS programs. The three-day Congress will end on Friday. Over 700 delegates are expected to attend. ANC Secretary General Fikile Mbalula and Health Minister Dr. Aaron Motsoaledi will also attend the Congress. Parliament will today start public hearings into the budget. This as public sector workers are demanding a speedy resolution to the current budget standoff, saying many government departments are already in crisis. Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana announced 23 billion rand in additional funding to cover the 5.5% public servants' salary increase in the next 3 years. The workers are expecting the increase to take effect next Tuesday. However, Kosatus Matthew Parks says budget is not likely to be passed by the 1st of next month, but the agreement should be honoured.
We do need a budget being passed. We can't afford for Parliament not to pass a budget because that would mean that no new expenditure can be undertaken. That will put at risk workers' salaries, social grants to the poor, investments in the economy and infrastructure, and so on. We'll make our submissions COSATU on what we think needs to be retained in the budget. For example, the key progressive items which we think are going to help workers, like the public sector wage agreement, filling critical frontline vacancies in the state, reinforcing frontline departments which had been really decimated by austerity budget cuts over the year.
The taxi industry in Limpopo says it is optimistic that the province's 2025 to 2026 budget allocations will cover the improvement of road infrastructure. Finance MEC Khabo Mahwai is expected to deliver the provincial budget speech today. Limpopo Santaco spokesperson Franz Ngwebe.
The reason is the route. The route is not good. If we can increase it, the budget, Meskin, Department of Public Works, he can go and fix up the routes because the route is not right.
Still in the province, the South African Civil Aviation Authority says a preliminary report on a recent crash involving a light aircraft in Vuwani will be released in 30 days' time. 3 people were injured in the crash which happened on Sunday. The aircraft, which was carrying a pilot and 2 passengers, crashed after taking off from a private airfield near Nandoni Dam outside Thoyando. It was on its way to Loitrigat. The authority spokesperson is Sisa Majola.
There were 3 occupants on board an aircraft. It was a pilot and 2 passengers. All 3 occupants did sustain serious injuries. The AIID has dispatched an investigator on site to collate evidence and to prepare for a preliminary report that will be published on the SACA website in 30 days.
And finally, further afield, Argentina's President Javier Milei has announced that he will declassify all intelligence files relating to the period when the country was under military rule. The announcement was made yesterday on the 49th anniversary of the military coup. The BBC's Leonardo Rocha has the details.
30,000 people are estimated to have been killed by the military authorities between 1976 and 1983, when democracy was restored. Mr. Millet said he wanted Argentines to get a full picture of what happened during that period, including murders committed by left-wing guerrillas that were active throughout the 1970s. He said the current narrative was controlled by the left. Human rights campaigners and the opposition have welcomed the decision, but many fear most of the documents incriminating the military and the secret services have already been destroyed. The files will begin to be released on Monday.
The top story this hour, President Cyril Ramaphosa will this morning address the Democratic Nursing Organization of South Africa's 9th Congress in Birchwood, east of Johannesburg. The Congress will deal with issues related to the implementation of the National Health Insurance and conditions under which nurses will work. Headlines at 8:30 for SAFM News. I'm Kolofelo Defo.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good morning. Traffic headlines look like this. The N1 very busy this morning. Joburg side from Beyers Nordier right round to a crash going into Buccleuch. There's also a breakdown before you get to that crash, but it is heavy across all lanes. There's some very high volume on the highways this morning. It's all running in and backing up into that collision. Crash on the N3 north after Giluli, so heavy coming through from Germiston. The N12 and R24 routes in for the east are heavy into Giluli as well. And the Mike 1 stays really jam-packed from Ormonde all the way up to about Glenhove Road at this stage. A reminder, if you're leaving the south coast of KZN on your way up towards Flight Connections, a crash at Prospecton, that is queue number 1. Queues into Westwood Mall via Spaghetti Junction, queue number 2, and a breakdown before Gateway, queue number 3 from as far back as Queen Nutty Drive. Breakdown going into Pietermaritzburg before Market Road. The earlier crash is cleared by Ashburton, but all that traffic being released now into a breakdown, so that stays super heavy. Cape Town Marine Drive, worth a mention this morning, coming from Bloberg through to Milner Road at Pardon Island. The rest of the highways and byways fairly busy. Stellenbosch is jam-packed, whether you're on Baden-Powell or the R44, getting it's heavy. And the East London taxi strike, the biggest delay at the moment seems to be the blockage on the N6 north of town in the Wings Park area. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
A very good morning to you. In your SFM Sports headlines, it's soccer news. Hugo Broos and the captain, that's Ronwen Williams, are aiming for a firm group on Group C. That's the top of the table clash with Benin. That's taking place tonight. And we also have Edwil van der Merwe. Well, he's moving to the Sharks. That's all the stories and more at around 8:30.
The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m. The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
Hey, good morning. Welcome to the third hour of the morning brief here on SAFM on this Tuesday. I'm Thulasizwe Simelane. It's good to be in your company this morning. Quite a number of issues that we've been discussing. In fact, I want to flag one in particular, the issues around community safety and patrollers. We've been discussing how to enhance the role of community members in assisting and being partners with police officers, yet at the same time making sure that people are not unnecessarily exposed to dangers in the communities where they live, given the reality of crime and the violence that is often associated with crime. Before I go any further, I want to just quickly take a call from Zukile in the Eastern Cape. And Zukile Kanti is the acting head of community safety in the Eastern Cape. Good morning to you, Zukile. You're calling about exactly this situation around community patrollers and safety.
Yes, thank you, Thulas. Let me appreciate the opportunity and for you taking my call. Actually, the surname is Kani, K-A-N-I. Let me start by saying that as a department, previously the department was known as Safety and Liaison. Mm-hmm. Then the provincial legislature decided that they need to change and gazette the name to Community Safety because we've seen the importance of communities in crime prevention. Now, there are strategies that we have put in place to make sure that the community is able to provide information to the trained law enforcement officers so that there could be successes in the cases that we're dealing with. And then further to that, what I really want to bring is that we name them safety ambassadors, wherein we take the unemployed youth, Some of them were giving them a stipend through the EPWP program, and then using what we call the district development model, we work with municipalities so that even those that are with the municipalities are under our supervision. However, we do provide training to them before we deploy them in the communities, especially on grant payment days, where the old ladies and the old fathers and the people with disabilities are being robbed of their monies. So we deploy them at malls, but under the supervision of a police officer. It is very difficult. It is not safe for us to leave them on their own. But one of the most threatening challenges that we have where we use these safety ambassadors is in the areas where stock theft is rife. That is the border patrol, where we work with other law enforcement agencies to make sure that we are able to prevent or reduce crime in those particular areas. Yes, I agree with the doctor that you spoke to this morning to say that these pockets are very difficult, especially in the rural environment, as well as in the informal settlements. It's not only difficult for us, it's also difficult for ambulances to go and save people in those areas because there's no street naming, there are no house numbers, nothing at all. So you have to, to be given guidance by a person telephonically to reach the victim.
Yeah, but how do you ensure that you minimize the dangers that they are exposed to? Because in the case, for instance, of the Merime informal settlement, we're talking about patrollers who were patrolling at night and then they encountered a group of people and this scuffle and violence ensued with the tragic results that we're now dealing with. You are talking about them being safety ambassadors, assisting on the day of payment of social grants, assisting with stock theft. It sounds benign enough, but until an incident actually occurs, during which there's a bit of violence that occurs.
Yes, indeed. What we do is we attach them to a police station. They don't work on their own. And when they do the patrols, they do them with a trained law enforcement officer. But what happens is that when sometimes they hold their own meetings on an emergency matter without getting SAPS involved, yes, it becomes a very high risk, especially in the churches as well as in the schools that where there are no community halls for them to engage in, they use those facilities. It becomes very difficult. Yes, but we do attach them to a police station and we do ensure that when they go on patrols, they have a trained law enforcement officer with them.
Yeah.
What we call visible policing.
Yeah. Lastly then, let me ask you about the shutdown, the taxi shutdown in the areas around East London this morning. How's that going from your monitoring perspective? How is it looking in terms of the roads and routes that have been disrupted this morning?
Our biggest challenge is on the side of Stutterham towards East London. First of all, there's a truck that has fallen there that is blocking the road, and also the taxis are mobilizing them. Taxi operators are mobilizing themselves that side. But we have deployed our multi-law enforcement officers that side. We have split ourselves. I'm working on the side that is between Port Alfred as well as the airport towards East London. So we are consolidating information, giving it to our spokesperson, Unati Pinose, who once he has got the information, he'll be able to give you a proper update. But we're working from different points, managing the situation. Yes, it is difficult, but we are on the ground with public order policing, provincial traffic, as well as peace officers from the BCM.
All right, I've got to thank you for your time. That's Zugile Kani, who is acting head of community safety in the Eastern Cape, weighing in there on two matters, really, the issues around community patrollers that they call safety ambassadors in the Eastern Cape, as well as the situation playing itself out in East London as far as the taxi shutdown is concerned. Let me take a call from Donald in Rustenburg. Good morning to you, Donald. You want to talk to me about the replacement for Ambassador Rasool in Washington, yeah?
Good morning, Tulas, and the brilliant team behind the scenes.
The brilliant team behind the scenes says good morning to you.
Yeah, I just want to... There you don't need to pitch a politician to deploy as an ambassador. You need someone who understands diplomacy.
Yeah.
Someone who was majoring in international relations, like Clayson Monyela. You don't need all those names. They're not... That's why we are here today. Because this Vienna Convention is the guideline. If you
Yes.
read the terms and agreement of the Vienna Convention, you can see clearly that Ambassador Ibrahim Rasool was out of touch.
So you say
So you need someone who, and not all those names which are mentioned today. You need someone
a career
like Place
diplomat.
Monyela, a
Yeah.
career diplomat, who someone who understands like what he's supposed to do, or you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. But is the Vienna Convention sufficient in this situation, though, Donald? Do you not need something more that says, yes, this, you've got the black letter law, but the reality on the ground, real politic says, this is what I need to do. This is what needs to be the approach to supplement, your knowledge of the rules.
Because remember, here we are dealing with a headliner. My namesake there. You are dealing with a headliner. So if you can pick someone, you can pick someone, a politician, it's not going to help in any way.
All right.
You need a diplomat, a career diplomat.
All right. Let's leave it there. Donald in Rustenburg talking about a potential replacement for former ambassador to the United States, Ibrahim Rasool. Let me also take, all right, I see we lost that call to Churchill. We'll see if we can get Churchill back, because Churchill also wanted to talk about the same issue of a replacement for Ambassador Rasool in the United States. In fact, let me take a voice note on that situation.
Hi, Thulasizwe. Errol from Durban here. I would put him as an ambassador, would be Max de Prier. Now, this guy's an Afrikaner, but he's a very verlichter. He's got no time for AfriForum and Solidarity. And I'm sure he would put the case forward and properly give them all the facts. Yeah, Errol from Durban.
All right, thank you for that, Errol. Lots of interesting names being thrown by various South Africans. But as I was saying, I'd also want to hear a bit more from you about what the characteristics are. And Errol does make that point about, just someone who is not given to some of the disinformation that we have seen playing itself out in recent months. So interesting suggestion there coming through from Errol. Let me take one more and then I'll go back to the calls.
Good morning, Thulas. Thulas, I think the president should consult within the GNU government on the appointment of the new ambassador to the US. And I think, for me, Simelane or Lindiwe Mazibuko or Athol Throlip, they can do a good job as the ambassadors in the US.
Yeah.
Thanks from Andile in Willowville, Eastern Cape.
Sure. An interesting mix and combination of people that you are making. And interestingly there, you are not foregrounding, as the one caller, Donald, was saying, that let's foreground diplomatic experience. But I think from you, you're just looking for certain characteristics that you see in the names of the people that you mentioned. Consulting within the Government of National Unity, that's going to be difficult, right? Given that how much of an effort it takes in many of these issues for them to reach, quote unquote, sufficient consensus and then agree on it. You see what's playing out with the budget. But who knows? Maybe this could be one of those where consensus does come easily. Churchill in Mthatha, good morning to you. You also want to talk about Ibrahim Rasool and the potential replacement.
Good morning, Thulas. Yes. Look, Thulas, Ibrahim Rasool might have received a hero's welcome in the Western Cape. But in my view, Thulas, I think, he should have known better as a politician. When it comes to diplomatic relations, you must act within the mandate of the country that you're actually representing. But I think here he acted out of his own personal capacity. Look, I might not love what Israel is doing, but if I'm deployed there by South Africa, I have to act within the mandate of the country, because at the end of the day, the people that suffer the most in all this fiasco are ordinary South Africans on the ground, not politicians. No, these relations were already sour. They were at an all-time low, and he actually fueled fire in these relations. And hence now he has even had to account even to the president of the country. You understand what I'm trying to say?
Well, yeah, I hear you, Churchill. What do you say to those who are saying that he has a responsibility to carry our values wherever he goes, and speak South Africa's truth wherever he goes. This is our truth as South Africa. This is how we view the situation, and therefore he should speak and speak fearlessly. What do you say to him saying that is the diplomacy of Ubuntu? It's not to put your head in the sand, bury your head in the sand when wrong is being done. It's to call it out.
Look, I disagree, Tulas. Look, our government was already in the process of mending this relation. You understand what I'm trying to say? Because they understand the consequences. And you're dealing with Trump here. Are you with me?
Yeah.
Now, he messed all that. He collapsed all that because they understood. You know, in our country, some of them might have acted out of emotions. And I remember the speech that was done by the SG of the ANC, also by our president, when he said, keep your America, and so on and so on.
Yeah.
But now, the South African government was in a process of actually mending these relations. Now, in that country, he acts outside the mandate. Are you with me?
Yeah.
Because the South African government realized that, no, we need to mend these relations because at the end of the day, it's our people that are going to suffer the most, not the politicians.
Let's leave it there. Thank you for that. That's Churchill in the Eastern Cape there. The good thing also is that Ambassador Rasool himself emphasizes the need to reset this relationship and its importance to say whatever our grievances are, we have to reset this relationship with the United States, even if it's at a different level beyond just the White House. Magdalene, good morning. You also want to talk about something completely different. This march that took place in Durban yesterday around illegal migration. Good morning.
Morning, Thulasizwe. Yeah, last week I did forget the presenter's name. I'm sorry for that.
It happens. Don't worry about it.
Okay, thank you. Thulasizwe, my point is that, South Africa is in a serious predicament whereby it needs a serious potential president together with its cabinet. For the fact that really we South Africans, more especially on what we expected, is not yet implemented. Point is on that. On my point is that should it happen that this March, the lady who presented it on SAFM yesterday.
Yes, Jacinta Ngobese Zuma.
Is it Zulu or Zuma?
Zuma. Jacinta Ngobese Zuma.
That's the point.
Yeah.
That's my point. Point is, if ever is Jacob Zuma's child.
No, I don't think she
relative.
is.
Okay.
No,
let me just point out my point.
Sure.
My opinion. Point is, if ever, did you hear that I say if ever is Jacob Zuma's child or Jacob Zuma's relative? And maybe it's something which was paraded within the family, that the appetite of the South Africans is to see the foreign nationals being out of the country. Then we are going to take advantage of the opportunity. Then really, we South Africans, we need not to be defocused anymore.
Okay.
We need to focus on what we want, because we want a highly potential president who really is in need. It's in the interest of the South Africans. Really, South Africans, we need to think deep. We need to think deep. We are not going to be taken for a drive anymore.
All right. Thank you for that, Magdalene. Thank you for that point. But I must say, as far as I understand it, I don't really know her that well. As far as I understand it, she's Jacinta Ngobese, and I think she's Jacinta Ngobese Zuma by marriage. I can't say more than that because obviously I don't know more than that. But I hear the point you are making. And I think let's leave it there. Just to clarify that as far as I understand it, she's not in any way Jacob Zuma's child or I don't know, relations, but I could be wrong. Yeah.
The Portfolio Committee on Premier and Finance will embark on public hearings throughout the province on the Northwest Appropriation Bill 2025 on the 26th March 2025 in Ngakamudiri Mulema District at Delareyville Municipal Hall in Delarey, in Dr. Kenneth Kaunda District at Tihani Community Hall in Tihani, in Dr. Ruth Sohomotsi Mumbadi District at Bonabona Community Hall in Bonabona, in Bojanala District, Breds White Hall in Breds. All hearings start at 10.
From the shows that bring us laughter to the moments that inspire us, your SABC TV license makes it all possible. Every license paid supports local stories, top talent, and the programs that unite South Africa. Pay your TV license today. Visit tvlic.co.za or your nearest retail outlet. Your screen, your story. Together, we make it happen.
Are we ready for a real conversation? SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
26 minutes after 8 on this Tuesday. Well, South Africa is hosting the second G20 Health Working Group meeting in Durban, KwaZulu-Natal, and that meeting is starting today and ending on Friday. It is themed, quote, accelerate health equity, solidarity, and universal coverage, end quote. The event will unite global health leaders to tackle urgent health challenges. Let's speak now to Namagetsi Doreen Ali, who is Director for Reproductive Health Services in the Ministry of Health in Malawi. Good morning and thank you for your time. How important a platform is the Health Working Group as a stream of South Africa's presidency of the G20, and how do you see it advancing the continent and the global South's interests in advancing healthcare for their populations?
Thank you. As you have rightly said, we are actually meeting. The G20 is meeting this morning. Basically, it was formed to promote global economic cooperation and stability, and also discuss health issues, and also climate change issues, and also sustainable development. The G20, has evolved from not just looking at crisis management platform, but now is tackling various global issues that, are almost similar to most of the countries. So for this time around, we are discussing on health issues, the challenges that they address, which we need to address, globally, such as pandemics, and also especially on healthcare access. For us, as the Director of Reproductive Health in Malawi, we are really very concerned with the challenges that we are having on sexual reproductive health and rights issues. So this, group is also tackling issues of sexual reproductive health and rights, including adolescent health, which is a global problem.
Yeah. Say a bit more about that then, just from the perspective of your directorate and perhaps your own interests. What would you like to see addressed at this G20 Health Working Group that specifically relates to access to reproductive health services for women, for people on the African continent and in your own country?
Yeah, for Malawi, we want to have one common stand in how we are going to address the problem, because the challenges, almost of them are similar, especially in African region. They are the same. So we wanted to ensure that all we understand what are the challenges and how do we address the problems, not in a piecemeal or scratching the problem on the surface, but to look at the interventions, packaged interventions that are going to be, targeted, for better outcomes. And we want to make sure that our leaders see to it that they avail themselves to help in advocating for resources across the board. Because sometimes we find that we are not giving enough resources, but the problem is there. So I want them to understand and take it as their priority agenda in all forums that they are meeting to discuss that, and not only to discuss, but also to take action on it in countries or as a group.
And do you believe the moment to be opportune for that kind of conversation to happen with countries beyond the African continent, given the nature of the composition of the G20 and the representation of countries from various regions of differing economic strengths and even regional blocs, such as the EU? Is the moment opportune? Is that the platform that you foresee advancing that conversation?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, sure. We foresee, because these are the opportunities that we have. because we need to take opportunity where something is happening. Like this is a big grouping of various countries, as you have already said, and we will be sharing, success stories, and also these countries that have maybe developed, they might be sharing on how other things can happen, because we might not have enough resources for the developing countries, but for those that are already developed, they might give creative ideas on how to do things. So if we are having a problem, we don't discuss problems as the ones that are having less resources. You include the others and say, okay, how do we leverage the resources that you have to help us as we are moving forward in the agenda?
All right.
So we know some have tackled these issues in their countries, and they might give ideas that might help the whole grouping that maybe we are not intervening in our other countries.
All right, let's leave it there. Thank you for your time this morning. That's Namagetsi Doreen Ali. She is Director for Reproductive Health Services in the Ministry of Health in Malawi. Let's check in with Kulufelo Tefo with the latest news headlines.
Thanks to Thulasizwe. In the headlines this hour, Police Minister Senzo Mchunu has arrived in Soshanguve in northern Pretoria, where 5 patrollers were gunned down and 8 others wounded in an informal settlement at the weekend. The Home Affairs Department and the Special Investigating Unit are set to collaborate in launching the Border Management and Immigration Anti-Corruption Forum in Pretoria today. And President Cyril Ramaphosa will this morning address the Democratic Nursing Organization of South Africa's 9th Congress in Birchwood in eastern Johannesburg. This and more at the top of the hour.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Hello.
The only talk radio morning breakfast show that makes sense. The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. This Human Rights Month, SAFM is deepening a culture of social justice and human rights. It's a time to reflect, engage, and take action for a more just society. From thought-provoking discussions to powerful stories, SAFM is leading the conversations that move us. Because your voice matters, your rights matter, and together we shape a better future. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Joburg traffic has been marked by a series of collisions on very busy highway routes on a very high volume Tuesday morning as well, so there's some real proper delays around. The N1 from Beyers Nordier, heavy all the way to Buccleuch. That's a crash scene which has been with us some time. A collision on the Mike 1 South around Caller Drive, coming from Woodmead via Santon. That is heavy on your way to Joburg. And a collision between Galulis and Linksfield, causing delays running up the N3 from Germiston, as well as pushing delays on the N12 and R24 routes back through their respective Edenvale exits. A lot of pressure all over Galulis interchange this morning. Durban, things calming down. An earlier crash at Prospecton coming up from a Munzum Toti. That traffic is sluggish, but it's starting to flow a lot better. And the breakdowns and crashes around Gateway are all out of the way now as well. So are the breakdowns and collisions between Ashburton and Market Road. So that looking a lot better. Cape Town, heavy traffic on the N1 from Belleville right through the city centre. N2s at Bunga Avenue. M3 from the bottom of Wynberg Hill up to Hospital Bench. So Marine Drive is worth a mention. Jam-packed still from Racecourse Road, the Paddocks Mall in Milnerton, all the way through to the double lights at Milner Road in Pardon Island. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Hey, good morning to you, Zai. So not really sitting on top of the world, but sitting on top of Group C, Bafana. But the warning from the coach and the captain is that this is no time to be complacent.
Absolutely, Tulas. They want a gap at the top, like a clean sheet and with all the benefits. We don't have to whoop out that calculator you mentioned. So let's go right ahead and mention that as the battle for the 9 direct spots in the 2026 FIFA World Cup intensifies, the captain, Ron Williams, raising the importance of maintaining the top spot after tonight's game against Benin. The two teams clash in a top-of-the-table Group C, 6 p.m. and a win against Benin will see Bafana go 5 points clear.
We know how important and vital this game is for the group. We know that we can open up a gap, and we know that a gap can be closed as well. So this is a big game in these qualifying rounds. It's obviously the halfway mark now, and you, after tomorrow, you'll have an idea as to who the favourites are in the group. So we want to be there, and we want to stay on top of the group.
Now playing simultaneously in West Africa will also be Nigeria against Zimbabwe. The Super Eagles believe they are back in the race for the top spot and will be hoping that Bafana stumble against the Cheetahs. Head coach Hugo Bruges says this could be one of the most important days for our group.
But at the other side, we are confident in ourselves. I think when you saw the progression of South Africa in the last year, I think it's enormous. So we are confident, and we think we can make a good result tomorrow, and we will try to win that game, because as I said before, this play day can be a key day. Imagine that we win tomorrow. Benin is at 5 points already. Nigeria is already at 4 points, and we will see what happened in the other games. So it can be a key day. So we will do everything to win that game tomorrow, but we know also that it will be very difficult.
And you can catch the action live on SABC Sport, 6 p.m. Tennis action, the world number 2, Iga Świątek of Poland, moving one step closer to her first title of the year. She had a 7-6, 6-3 victory over the number 22 seed, Elina Svitolina of Ukraine. That's at the Miami Open. In the men's draw, Italian Matteo Berrettini defeated the Belgian Zizo Berg 6-4, 6-4. And finally, cycling, Matthew Brennan sprinting to victory in the first stage of the Tour of Catalonia in pouring rain, pipping Thibaut Del Grosso as the 104th edition of the race begins. That's a wrap. We'll be racing with more sport around 12:30 with John Hedeka. I'm Zai Khan.
The Business Update on SAFM.
Let's say good morning once again to Ndauling Lechela. Ndauling, one of the vitals that we check on in as far as the economy and sentiment is concerned is retail confidence. You are telling me that the signs are not so great for quarter one?
And this is according to findings by the Bureau for Economic Research. Now, the survey in particular measures confidence among retailers, so not necessarily consumers. Now, the index revealed that retail morale edged down from 54% to 50% in the first quarter. Despite the decline, confidence levels remain above the long-term average. Now, the BERS survey found that half of retailers were satisfied with prevailing business conditions, which could bode well for retail sales and consumer spending. Now, this aligns with the strong retail sales growth reported by Stats SA for the fourth quarter of 2024. Retail sales figures as well coming in upbeat in January. I think they were up about 7% for that month. So they are some concerns, but it seems like most retailers are satisfied with conditions. Now, retail sales were driven by semi-durable and non-durable goods, boosted by lower inflation, improved consumer confidence, and access to funds through retirement savings withdrawals. Although confidence declined slightly, retail sales volumes held steady. In contrast, wholesaler optimism retreated in the first quarter, while the motor trade sector experienced a sharp rebound. New vehicle dealer confidence surged, supported by improved sales volumes and declining interest rates. Among retail subsectors, semi-durable goods retailers showed the highest confidence levels since before the global financial crisis. However, non-durable goods and furniture retailers expressed decreased confidence. Looking ahead, the Bureau of Economic Research notes that while the internal trade sector appears reasonably rosy, the outlook for the second quarter is more uncertain. Temporary relief from retirement savings withdrawals is expected to fade, and a planned VAT increase poses a new threat to household budgets and retail confidence.
So in this other story then, Dowling, the realities of cybercrime, cyber attacks, and their financial implications are becoming more and more lived realities that companies are having to grapple with. Tell me about how Astral is warning of a profit hit following a cyber attack.
That's right, Thulas. Now, the poultry producer announced that a recent cybersecurity incident will cost the company an estimated 20 million rand in profit. This for the 6 months ending March, that interim period. The incident, which took place last week, disrupted operations, particularly in the poultry division, resulting in lost revenue. Now, fortunately, the group confirmed that no sensitive customer, supplier, or stakeholder data was compromised, and all business units have resumed normal operations. But the timing of the incident was unfortunate, as the company was already facing challenges due to selling price deflation, higher maize prices, and increased poultry feed input costs. As a result, Astral Foods expects its headline earnings per share to decline by up to 60%. Now, despite these headwinds, the company maintains a strong balance sheet position with a net cash position in the 6 months ending March. Now, as digital transformation gains momentum, cybersecurity risks have taken center stage, as we've mentioned there. And when the company releases results in May, it'll be interesting to see or hear whether there are more measures in place to strengthen security and also the costs associated to that.
All right, lastly then, Dowling, give us a sense of what kind of a day we can expect in the markets on this Tuesday.
The local markets poised to start the day mixed as traders await concrete market moving catalysts. In terms of company news, results out from investment firm Remgro and Master Drilling. Also a busy day on the macro front with labor data and consumer confidence prints due later today. Looking at the currency scene, the rand muted, not much action playing out this morning. It's stable at 18.24 to the dollar. Over in the US, futures in the red as traders assess risks associated with President Trump's trade policies. Investors are also eyeing PCE figures, that inflation print out on Friday. And then lastly, we're seeing some profit taking in Asia with stocks on that front on track to end the day mixed.
Great stuff. That's Aunt Dowling Lechela. She's always right on the money. She'll be back with more updates for you tomorrow.
In times like these, everyone is looking to save wherever they can. But you don't have to be a detective to know that with Outsurance, you could be saving big on your car insurance. Hear it from real Outsurance client Marius.
The great big saving that I've got, 765 Rand, 27% a month on my premium. It's so quick and easy to swap over. I am part of the Outsurance family.
It's a no-brainer. SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754. Saving on car insurance makes you feel like a winner. And the best part is, if Outsurance can't beat your car insurance premium, ask them for 500 Rand cash. And make that 1,500 Rand cash if you've been claim-free and with the same insurer for 3 years. SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754. With Outsurance, you always get something out. A licensed insurer and FSP. T's and C's online.
The Cheetahs are very hungry for victory. However, Bafana say they are in the business of collecting 3 points. The West battles it out with the South. This is the FIFA World Cup 2026 African qualifier. Experience the delight of African football. Benin versus South Africa. On Tuesday, 25 March at 5:30 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4, S3, and at 6 p.m. on SABC radio stations. Also, available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Hey, want to check your TV license balance conveniently? Look no further. Our SMS service allows you to do just that. By sending a message containing your ID or TV license number to 44210, you can quickly access your balance without needing multiple inquiries or waiting on hold. Plus, standard SMS rates apply. Take advantage of this efficient method to stay informed and streamline your payment process today. T's and C's apply.
Thulasizwe Simelane on the Morning Brief. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
It's just gone 15 minutes to 9. Let's turn our attention to this story. The Johannesburg Crisis Alliance, a civic movement, is calling for ethical leadership in the city of Johannesburg to address the ongoing challenges in service delivery. During a solutions session, that's what they called it, at the Constitution Hill, Eunice Chamda of the Joburg Crisis Alliance emphasized the need for competent leadership with the right qualifications and a robust accountability structure to improve governance and service provision in the city. Let's welcome Mark Haywood, the South African human rights and social justice activist, joining me now to take the conversation forward. Mark, good morning. Thank you for your time. I suppose if I were to ask you the question, what ails Joburg? It can be a highly complex and perhaps as engaged as what is the meaning of life. But what would be the features for you? What ails Joburg, and to what extent does leadership account for what ails Joburg?
Good morning, Thulasizwe, and thanks. That's a lovely question. I think Joburg is many things. Joburg is the economic hub of our country. It's the economic motor of our country. It's a city where millions of people live and make their livelihoods. It's a cultural melting pot. It's a national icon. And it's a city that should be a center of pride, positivity, innovation, economic opportunity. And that is why the management of a city like Johannesburg is so important, because we have to make sure that we look after and grow all of those parts, and that is a complex but entirely possible challenge.
So, Mark, when we talk leadership, usually we tend to focus on the political leadership, the alliances that then govern the city of Joburg. But you, at least some of the people in civil society, are now beginning to make the point that that's not enough. You also need to be focusing on the administrative leadership, positions such as the city manager. How much of a problem is it that the previous city manager's appointment was embroiled in the controversy that it was, and he ended up having to leave after the courts ordered that he vacate the position, and now we sit with an acting city manager?
Well, it's a big problem because, although we see the politicians on a day-to-day basis, the politicians are not the public servants who oil the machine and make it work and run the systems and so on. And those are the critical people. And what we need is a seamless and effective relationship between the politicians and the administrators. Now, that's another issue perhaps we can discuss on another time. But a position like the city manager is the most crucial position in Johannesburg or any other big city. And as you say, for a number of years, it's been mired in controversy, in corruption. The courts have found that the last appointment was made illegally. It has been used by politicians, frankly, as a way of positioning themselves close to resources, close to tenders, politicians getting city managers to do their bidding and city managers getting politicians to do their bidding and so on. So we're now at a crucial point, Thulasizwe, where Johannesburg has been forced to advertise the position of city manager after the last one was ruled illegal. And the Johannesburg Crisis Alliance is saying that the interviews for that position should be public. They should be open to the public. And we are saying that the person who fills that position should be a person who is clearly having the necessary experience, the necessary integrity, the necessary leadership ability. Remember, Joburg has a budget of something like 80 billion rand a year. I'm not joking when I say this position is probably as important in many respects as the position of the president of the country.
Sure. Wow. Then lastly, Mark, the other issue I wanted to tease out with you is the structure of Joburg. It has these entities that are more or less state-owned entities. In fact, they are state-owned entities at the local government level. Is there a need to relook that structure, given some of the weaknesses that come out? sometimes you will have the upper structure in terms of the city manager and other heads of various departments, but perhaps specific weaknesses in the entities themselves. So you have your Joburg Water, your City Power, Joburg Zoo, and the likes.
There is a need to relook at those structures. Some of them function quite well. Joburg City Parks and Zoos, for example, in my experience, is a reasonably well-run and responsive department. Others have simply been sites for corruption and for looting. So we need to look at each one of those. We need to make sure that each one has a proper and, again, experienced governance structure. And we need permanent transparency. We need to be able to look into the books, what they are spending on, why they are spending it. Because although there's a lot of money floating around in Johannesburg, there's also a lot of problems that need focused attention and which need resources. So the message we're trying to say, Thulasizwe, as the Johannesburg Crisis Alliance, is we need the politicians to do their job, we need the city administration to do their job, but we need them to be in conversation with the citizens all of the time and coming to us as the citizens for ideas, for feedback, for responsiveness. And let's build a meaningful partnership to go back to where we started this conversation, which is to build a truly world-class African city that becomes the pride of the country, not just the people who live in it.
All right, I've got to leave it there. Thank you for your time this morning. That's Mark Haywood. He's a human rights and social justice activist. And my goodness, it's not to be self-indulgent as people who live in Joburg, but really this city, being the heartland of the economy of South Africa, needs to function better than it is functioning at the moment. And my goodness, does the President's working group on Johannesburg have its work cut out for it.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Let's get you an update on that N1 going north this morning. This earlier crash at Buccleuch taking a while to sort itself out. It is very heavy. It's a high volume Tuesday and some really big traffic around from Randburg, from Beyers Nordia all the way up into Buccleuch. Malabongwe coming to the highway is quite heavy to get in, and there's all sorts of issues getting off at Winnie Mandela as well, with obviously a lot of people looking for alternative routes, and then the lights down Winnie Mandela and Sloane, so the ramps and the bridge are quite heavily backed up. Also crash Mike 1 south around before Athol Oakland, so from N1 Buccleuch as you come into Woodmead all the way down through Sandton into Melrose is heavy. The N12 and R24 routes into Galulis are badly backed up from the Ekurhuleni side, and the Mike 1 stays heavy from Ormonde up towards Smith Street exit. Joe Slovo is an alternative northbound option, not very advisable. It is jamming from the M2 through towards the Duranfontein area on your way to Hillbrow. Durban, the M4 Southern Freeway's been busy this morning. There's still some queuing pressure. Could well be roadworks so from Jacobs coming up into Clarewood on your way towards city centre. It stays really busy. Cape Town Stellenbosch approaches coming in from the south on Baden-Powell and the R44 remaining very slow, and the N1 inbound still heavy from Plattercliff Hill right the way through the elevated freeway. A combination of high volume and a crash between Kubo Interchange and Marine Drive. With your traffic update, I'm Rob Byrne.
Call Thulasizwe now, 086 000 2032.
Yeah, let's make the most of the remaining time that we still have together. Earlier on, I took a call from Magdalene, and Magdalene was talking about the March in March that happened yesterday in Durban that was led by Jacinta Ngobese Zuma. If I understood what Magdalene was saying was that we need to be circumspect and interrogate a bit more what could be at play as an agenda in that march. And then she made allusion to the Zuma part of Jacinta's surname. And I made the point that I don't really have first-hand knowledge of whether or not she's related to Jacob Zuma. As far as I understand, she's Jacinta Ngobese and Zuma by marriage. Someone has sent a voice note who perhaps has a clearer understanding of whether or not that comes up as an issue.
Good morning, Thulas and your team and the listeners. It's tough to be a Zuma. Hey, I suggest that any person whose surname is Zuma, please go to Home Affairs and change it. I think it's only 400 Rand, because if you are Zuma, then you are related to Jacob Zuma. South Africans can be so petty. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I thought you were going to help me. I thought you were coming in to help me to actually answer this question one way or another. But nevertheless, I think we've interrogated the point, and I'm happy for us to move on from it, unless someone feels that there's something further that they need to clarify. I think the substance of the issue, the march itself, was it effective? Was it raising genuine issues that deserve to be raised? And I think that's really where the focus should be. Let me take a voice note that has to do with the options that are on the table for President Ramaphosa for replacement of our former ambassador to Washington, Ibrahim Rasool.
Morning, Mr. Simelane, once again. I just want to comment on Rasool's issue. We cannot replace Ibrahim Rasool, but the explicit racism being displayed by Trump against our country is irreplaceable. And being a quiet ambassador does not mean we don't see the Trump racial rhetorics. Thank you.
Yeah.
Goliath Kabeja.
Goliath, thank you for that. I would have wanted to hear more. So what kind of a person then will be able to navigate that racism that you talk about out of Washington? But thank you for making that point. AB in Durban, good morning to you. You also want to weigh in on the U.S. ambassador, the South African ambassador to the United States, yeah?
Yes, Tulas. Let's be clear, no ambassador will be acceptable to the clowns in the White House unless he or she agrees that we are wrong to take Israel to the ICJ, or secondly, agrees that confiscating white farms is wrong, or agrees that it's wrong for South Africa to prevent Elon Musk from operating his Starlink company here without the 30% equity requirement. These are the main sticking points. Agree to all of them and you'll be welcomed by Trump, Musk, and Pollack. Some people have suggested Tony Leon will be an ideal candidate. Will he agree with our position that what Israel is doing is a genocide, and therefore we are correct in taking Israel to the ICJ? I'm ready to take bets on that.
Yeah, and here's the thing, though, AB. Even some of the issues, the confiscation of land, and the other matter that you mentioned. With Elon Musk, for example, Starlink, the last update I heard was that he had not even applied for an actual application to actually operate in South Africa. But here's the other point, the interesting thing that you make. Even Ambassador Rasool, in his speech, if I understood him correctly, he says in following the traditional diplomacy, he was even willing to entertain some of these speaking points that you're talking about, to say, I'll hear you. I don't believe there's mass confiscations, but hey, why not? Let me humor you and hear you. He says even that did not work.
Yes, indeed. And he was knocking at the door of the White House, but they were insulting him by not opening it.
Yeah. All right, AB, thank you for that. That's AB in Durban. Maxwell in Pretoria, good morning. You want to talk to me about water shortages in your area?
Good morning, Tulas. You know that I love the province in Mpumalanga, and I wish the executive of that province to succeed.
It's a great province, that one.
It's a beautiful province.
Yes, the land of the rising sun. Yes, but tell me more.
I wish all the executive all the best, but I do have an issue with the Dipalising local municipal, where those people, they don't have water. Remember, I complained about the 4 billion that the Mpumalanga government put on water tank. And for a water tank to take time to supply those people that needs to drink pills now or medication, it takes a lot of red tapes for those municipalities to issue those tenders for those water tanks. The solution, why don't give a call to the gift of the givers? You install the bowls. Most of the province, the problem is water, but it is the political will, where I strongly believe that the government of Mpumalanga at the moment, they don't see the use of a borehole. There is a last point there is another guy who got ref money in Mpumalanga. He took that money and built a borehole that supplies more than 100 families. in his community. So is it not a good example to see that let's stop this corruption in water tanks and we put boreholes will sort the problem of water?
It's an issue that's close to your heart, I can tell, Maxwell, because I think it's not the first time.
Absolutely, and you promised to bring them to your studio.
Yeah.
We're still waiting.
Yeah, no, thank you for calling me out on that. The team is listening. This time around, it will be fulfilled. That we should explore, as Maxwell says there, what are the other alternatives to using water tankers, because there's been this cry constantly in communities. I suppose someone from the water department would be ideal to talk to us about that what stops them from exploring other solutions, such as drilling boreholes where that is possible, so that communities have water until you are able to find a more permanent fix. Thank you for listening. That's how we come to the end of today's edition of The Morning Brief. The Talking Point with Kethe Motlatlana is up next here on SAFM after the news.
Thanks to Thulasizwe. Top stories this hour. Mkhunu visits Soshanguve in wake of patroller's murder, and Oscar-winning Palestinian director attacked. Good morning. I'm Kolofelo, therefore. Police Minister Senzo Mkhunu has arrived in Soshanguve in northern Pretoria, where 5 patrollers were gunned down and 8